Hiya, and welcome to Dice Club, whether it be morning, noon, or night. It is now the first Wednesday of the month, which means that we will be doing dun dun dun, dun Dice Club Academy, a new little segment that we're trying out here. If you're joining us, this is thank you. Anonymous. You're an
Yay, Anonymous is
angel.
in the chat. And again,
Yeah,
hooray.
Dope.
our little guardian angel. Um, first thing, first rule of Dice Club. Tell everyone about Dice Club. It's literally the only rule, really easy to remember. Couple of updates. Coming soon will be the wrestling, Worldwide Wrestling. That is the name of the system. Yeah, Jack?
Yes, it is Worldwide Wrestling.
Right. And Jack will be running it. We've got some very interesting wrestler concepts coming. I'm kind of excited about that. It'll be a ride. That is for sure. I think it will be thoroughly entertaining. So if you want to join us for that, that is I think 3 Central Standard Time our time, but UTC jump ahead by 5 hours. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that'll be Saturday afternoons. Earlier in the day, however, we have our 5e game also run by Jack. You're a very busy bee on Saturdays, aren't you? And that,
Yeah,
I know
lots of
is at
things.
1. That is at 1 UTC, but for me, I know that's 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. So if you want to wake up, you don't have your Saturday morning cartoons. Instead, you have D&D. The greatest adventure of all. You can start your days out with Dice Club. We'd be happy if you did. I think that's it. Also, if you want to join our Discord, join the insanity of Dice Club. You're encouraged to do so. You can get involved with our games, even help us like with NPCs and things of that nature if you're so desired, or art or whatever it moves you to do. If you just want to lurk, that's fine. Or you can get involved, which we encourage you to do. Yeah, all of our old shows are up on YouTube, our old videos if you're wanting a backlog of stuff. And I think that is it for our announcement type thing. On to the Academy. Joining me as well is Panda, who made a lot of visual aids for today's.
I pilfered them from the web, which I guess is a sort of creation. You know what Pablo Picasso once said, good artists do something, great artists steal. I forgot the first part of the quote, but the first part of the quote is inconsequential.
Nothing is ever really truly original anymore. I mean,
exactly.
Listen to today's music. It all sounds like the 80s, doesn't it? But we digress. And as always, my colleague and lead DM here on Save, or I almost said the wrong thing, on Dice Club is Jack.
Hello, it's me,
Hey,
Jack, also known as Insomnijack, but that's just a silly little nickname.
It's a great nickname, Insomnijack. You get it? Insomni.
Yeah, sounds like
anyway.
Insomniac, because I have sleep problems.
Yes, you do. You're always up. But that allows you to think more on our games, which is great. So role playing or acting your character is the discussion for today, or what we're going to be picking apart and really examining.
The discussion today is RP Essentials, which is basically just
Which is what I just said, role playing.
Yeah. Just the things you should sort of like know before sort of like getting into tabletop role playing. Just sort of like the 101 sort of information things.
Or maybe what you discover as you go along.
Yeah, that too.
It's hard to know everything when you decide to get into this hobby. I mean, there's no way that you can, take in the player's handbook or whatever system you're doing and then doing it. It just, there's a learning curve. We accept that, but some
And
things to keep in mind.
that said, pretty much everything to do with tabletop role playing is kind of subjective. I would argue there are some objective truths when it comes to role playing.
There are things that work well.
Yeah.
There are some. I mean, you can do most anything, but will it be effective? Will it make things run smoother?
Will it be fun?
Basically,
Will it be fun as well? Will it be fun?
Not just for you, but
everyone else.
Exactly.
He's a happy panda munching on what are you munching on?
I went to a breakfast place, grabbed an omelet and potatoes. And I just threw everything in one bowl because fuck it.
The panda is eating breakfast foods in the afternoon. It's great. Okay, so where do we want to really begin in our little down the rabbit hole of?
I would assume slide 1.
That is a very good place to begin.
What a transition. What a transition.
Slide 1.
Panda, do you want to read when it pops up?
Well, I barring people who, are blind, who just
I can't, I'm illiterate.
So
then how the hell are you going to learn any handbooks and stuff for games? That's just
it's okay. If you go to audible.com/Panamaster what the fuck / this is definitely not sponsored content because I ain't that baller yet. You can go and listen to all the Pathfinder you know what, instead of doing that, just go to D20 PFSRD and then use copy paste everything into Google
lying. Lies. He lies. Slide 1. Advance the roll.
Okay. So the first slide that we got is called Getting in Character. Panda, did you want to read?
My favorite.
All right, I got it. Okay, so the illustration you see to the right, it's not exactly, it doesn't specifically pertain to getting character in general. It's just the alignment chart of
Ooh, alignment.
Yes, it's the alignment chart of characters in D&D and Pathfinder. This is how most people end up playing their characters after choosing their alignment. As you can see, there's some very generic stuff going on to the right. I'll give you a second to read that.
Yeah. I mean, and it is true. Classes kind of have trope personalities, right? As well, people think of a rogue, they kind of already ascribe a personality to that, like a paladin or whatever. But I mean, a lot of time alignment has come to mean very little. I don't know why that is, but when you're sitting down with your character, if that alignment will give you a lot of good stuff to formulate a personality. Really, it can be very, very helpful. So yeah, maybe shifting and refocusing on alignment, which has kind of fallen out of vogue, can give you a lot of material for a personality. It really can.
It's a good starting line. Just don't get too caught up in trying to make your character as evil as possible or too lawful. But if you want
to speak on that later, I mean that could be a whole thing unto itself.
If you want to be as flexible as possible, just choose one of the neutral alignments. Do whatever you want.
Or chaotic, but I mean, sometimes choosing to be neutral can be kind of vague. Like, well, I'm okay with any and everything. Then, kind of, in some ways. I mean, just if you really do, just sit down and just think about, well, what does this mean? It can be very, very interesting. Very, very interesting.
I would honestly
Like, how far am I willing to go?
I would honestly say that alignment is more of like a holdover of an earlier time of role playing, especially in D&D first or second edition. Alignment wasn't so much like a character guide when it came to role playing. It was actually a mechanic of the game.
Do you remember alignment speech?
Alignment speech.
Yeah, where it was like another like, do you speak chaotic good?
Yeah.
That got phased out, but that was a mechanic that used to, and people were just like, what? So not only would you have common that everybody could understand, chosen languages, you would have your alignment speech, which meant, you know, whatever. They were the same alignment as you.
Did you know as well that back in the early days of D&D, there was actually a mechanical disadvantage or punishment for not playing your character in alignment.
Yeah, and I think that is very interesting.
Do you know what it was as well?
Your god stops talking, giving you your ability to do stuff?
No. Oh yes, for paladins, but it for just all characters. If you broke alignment, and the DM said that you're not acting like a chaotic, evil or neutral good character anymore, I'm going to have to change you to chaotic good or lawful
that's
good.
An alignment shift.
Alignment shift, yeah. There was actually a penalty. There was actually a penalty in the early editions of the game for alignment shift, and it was you would lose a level.
Oh.
Yeah.
That'll get you back on track.
Yeah, that was meant to be sort of like a mechanical reason for you to play your character's alignment.
Interesting.
It's mainly a guide, basically. It's to remind the player when they're role playing.
It's consistency.
My character, is my character good? Is he neutral, chaotic? And then try to think like, okay, in this situation, what would my character do? And then if you can't think of it off the top of your head, just think about what that sort of like alignment character would do. That's all it is. It's kind of lost its purpose mainly in like recent editions. That's why I say it's a holdover. The earlier editions.
But that would make you more consistent.
Yep.
that would do that. It must not have worked very well for it to fall out of vogue, though. Maybe I don't know.
I don't remember it being. I don't remember it being very popular.
Well,
but
I
started playing second edition like way after second edition was a thing. Because the first group I played with was like a old guard group who still played second edition even when 3.5 was out, because they were like 3.5 is bad. It was bad. But
it was pretty.
But yeah, the first bullet point you got there is take into account the setting you're playing in.
Yes. If you're playing high fantasy, most generally European based fantasy, let's just say you're an adventurer during medieval times, you do not want to be making modern day references during the adventure in character unless it's for comedic purposes. But in general, I got a whole slide. There's a whole slide after this that covers a bunch of shit to avoid. But this is one of the things you need to avoid.
Monty Python Grail stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
All heard it. It's not clever. I mean, we're all guilty of it to some degree or another, but and a lot of times it's new players, bless them, and they get through it. But it is something to kind of be aware of, especially if your character is not at all charisma based. Then it really is very jarring. Then it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever that this is coming up. But we all have those moments in the game if stuff is getting a little bit too heavy that somebody will say something, and it's usually a modern reference of some sort, and oftentimes it can be a nice little break. But yeah, as you say, it can quickly become breaking the immersion break. Thank you, immersion breaking. Role playing does tend to like come into like talking about the classes and all that, because it touches it. You know, you can't talk about role playing without talking about class almost. So yeah.
I would say as well that for the point of taking into account the setting you're playing in, it's more so about like breaking setting. Essentially, and I actually put this in because I've got like a little slide in a bit, but anyway, that my point is kind of like repeated in this one, so I totally agree with it. Your character is a product of the setting that they exist in. Your character doesn't exist in a vacuum. So if the GM has set out the world that the game is going to take place in, and it's, say, for example, a medieval setting, hyper realistic to English history, and the Catholic Church is in the most popular church at the time, why would you play an atheist? Because that's one thing that I notice a lot, is that people will tend to toward like certain types of characters. If religion is a factor in the game, they'll play a character who questions God.
Oftentimes in D&D, if you do not have a god, guess who's getting your soul when your character dies?
The mailman
in a D&D game.
No, Asmodeus is.
in a D&D game, specifically, I do not even understand why people play atheist characters in D&D, because there is literal proof in D&D settings that gods exist.
Yeah,
it's not even a question of faith. There is actual evidence in the world that gods exist.
There are more benefits to having a god than not having a god. It's almost like, I want to make this more difficult for myself in a way that I really need not do. It's a game. There are gods in this game. If you choose not to have a god, well, the game is going to kind of force you to do so, because there's heaven and hell, and you're going to go one or two places.
Well, that's the thing.
Or, you could go to
that's really the thing, is that I'm not saying that you can't play a character who doesn't believe in a god in a game where the actual evidence of gods exists. But if you don't, you should have a really good reason not to.
You can play a character that dislikes God, but it's kind of hard to say that they don't exist. That's really hard to do.
Or like
most people that end up not writing down a specific deity on their character sheet or picking a specific deity to worship, most of them newbies, don't know about the setting, just go in atheist because that's the easiest thing to do. But if you've been playing a D&D for long enough, the easiest way to get around it is to say, oh, I don't have a patron deity because my class features do not require me to have one.
Yeah.
And it's not necessary for my character. It's not necessary for my character to have a patron deity to function properly within this campaign. So you could just acknowledge the existence of the gods.
Or it's a journey of discovery of like which one, you meet these people and then they have gods and you see the great things that they're doing, and maybe you come to have an affinity for one. It could be also a good story mechanic if you don't have one off the bat. It can create a good story.
And that's a fun thing to play if you can justify if you can play that into your character's backstory. But it goes beyond like your character's belief in the deities that exist in the world. for example, if you are playing in Greyhawk, for example,
That's old.
in the character that you would be playing would be significantly different to a character if you were, for example, playing in Forgotten Realms, because Forgotten Realms is more of sort of like a typical Tolkienist sort of like fantasy with rolling green hills and
the Shire.
yeah, and so your character would be a very sort of like, aha, let's go down to the pub and have a pint. Oh, Mr. Frodo sort of character.
Let's have second breakfast.
Yes.
But if you're playing in Greyhawk, Greyhawk is a very sort of like Conan the Barbarian inspired land, so it wouldn't make sense. You could play it, but essentially the because the setting is more of like a Conan the Barbarian darker sort of setting. It would make more sense that your character would be a darker sort of character.
Or Barovia. There aren't gods in Barovia, but somebody's answering your prayers.
Bro! You answer my prayers, bro. Oh, yeah, bro. I'm answering your prayers from up top. Yeah. Oh, bro. No, bro.
And that was Panda's moment.
Yes.
For this top of the hour or middle of the hour.
That was just Exhibit A, bros praying in Brovia.
Oh,
Brovia.
There were layers to that.
Bro!
Anyway,
so
taking into account religion and setting and alignment, just already,
yeah.
Characters happening, characters formulating, percolating.
Yep, you can tell we prepared a lot for this for this workshop right here. Yeah, we definitely put a lot of effort into it. Yeah.
So
Bruce, you slaved for hours.
It was on and off.
So the next point is act accordingly based on the details of your character you've created along with their backstory. You can use similar pre-existing characters in media as references.
Yeah, this often goes to what I like to call it with acting, and Bruce, you probably are kind of familiar with this as your close and your stretch. After you've been playing for a little while, you have a character eventually that you will know inside out, that you can just relax into, what they think, how they talk, how they feel about a thing, whether they like ice cream or not, if they prefer slushies. That's how well this type, and often there's a class as well involved with this type of character, but that is your close. And so whenever, oftentimes then people will have that one character and it's a really great character, but then they struggle to formulate a new character that they can get to know as well as the previous one. And really, you just kind of have to work backwards with how you came to know the Genesis character, your close, so well, to make a new one. For some reason, people kind of struggle with that, and it's just going back and picking apart how you came to know that personality. Really,
I think this is one that if you have been playing for a while, you kind of take for granted how it will come very natural to you, and you will kind of take for granted that like some people, especially new people to the game, this is an entirely new sort of thing to grasp, which is the fact that your character isn't you, and it's a character with like thoughts, feelings, history, hopes, dreams that exists inside the world, and it's your job as the player to know your character to the point that you can basically act what that character is doing inside of the world.
I have some caveats with that, because I do think that our characters are a lot of the times, speaking as me and I'm a method actor, there are some aspects of that character which are very much you, only cranked up. They get cranked up and juiced up. Not to say that like every like bet is completely me, or any of the characters that I've played for you are completely me. But there are some things put in there that are very Jerry.
Like sometimes when you got a southern drawl and you want to play an over the top character with an even heavier southern drawl who's a cowboy in the Wild West, you just gotta crank it up a bit, maybe get a little bit out of your comfort zone, and just do not care about what other people think about how you are acting in this time and environment, even though you were probably not playing in a cowboy campaign and you were just doing a generic D&D adventure.
Yeah, you picked the southern one for a reason, or are you hinting at something that I do, Panda?
I'm just saying, like, I've noticed at least 50% of the characters you play just have the southern accent.
Or I'll do the Minnesota
accent.
Yeah, you end up defaulting to the southern accent.
I do a lot. I do a lot, especially with older characters a lot of the time.
I do kind of like default to an Irish accent as well.
Well, you know what
I mean, we all have them. And that is because a southern personality is very much my close, more so with NPCs. But I mean, there are things that you grasp and that you end up kind of putting into characters, and it becomes a bit. Those characters are typically more genuine. They come across as more genuine simply because that's you. It's people you know. So, you know, saying that it's complete not you at all, yes and no. You know, we are going to have some differing opinions.
I would. I mean, if that's in how you approach a role playing character, like, I'm not disagreeing with you. For me though, especially because I DM a lot more than I play, I kind of have to play lots and lots and lots of different characters.
You have to dissociate even more as a DM.
Especially like characters that just aren't me, who won't act in the same way that I will. So I kind of have to sort of like think about like how people who don't share my opinion would act, and especially not to stereotype them, because it's so easy to believe that, like, why would somebody act this way? Well, that must be because they're dumb or something. That's not entirely the case. And for most people, if you are going to be playing a character, it is, as Jerry said, it's better to play your close, which basically just means that like a character is
DMs play their stretches.
Yeah. Because it's a lot harder to play a character that is like wildly different from who you are. So if you're new to the game, definitely play a character that's close to you. That's what I'm gonna say.
DMs do stretches, players do close.
I kind of just jump between the two whenever I feel like it.
You do. That's why you're so freaking chaotic.
Yeah.
So the next one is stay flexible and open-minded, which
a lot of times it is very much discovery. DMs love it when you have like a really completely written biography of your character.
I just
I kind of like to bounce along with it and and kind of discover. Mine are usually left a bit open. I also play fishes out of water, which, you know, usually come into an environment which is kind of counter to what a lot of DMs want. Sometimes it works great. Sometimes it fails epically. Sometimes it works. But I think that when you do kind of have a little bit more vaguer of a background, which is kind of after you've been playing a while, that's kind of becomes a more viable option. Starting out, usually it is good to set in stone a lot of things because you're learning so much stuff. But after you start playing a while, you can leave it kind of open-minded, and that's where, you know, the whole thing about, well, maybe I'm not very particularly religious myself. I believe there are gods. Oh my gosh, you have this connection with your God. Is how do you do that? Blah blah blah. Then because you don't have that set in stone in your backstory, you can have that journey of discovery in that manner.
That's yeah, that is a good point. That with the stay flexible and open-minded thing, and this again goes back into taking account of the setting you're playing in, and the fact that a lot of players will not play characters who believe in deities, despite the fact that deities in D&D are provable things.
Yeah, they are.
It's because, and this is just a theory, and I'm not generalizing, but saying that like you know, all people do this. But what I think it is that like because some people themselves do not believe in the higher power, they cannot sort of like visualize what it would be to play a character who does instead. So it is intuitive to role playing a character to be open-minded to things. Yeah, to be open-minded to things that like you personally might not believe in. Anonymous says, I mean, you know they exist, but
that's or you think that they're petty or something or other. And if in real, I can see the how when you're playing your close, if you don't believe in a higher power per se, you think that people are kind of hitting themselves when they do believe in that. My thing is like we're playing pretend. If ever you know an atheist would, you know, say they believe in God, it would be pretending, you know, because they think that, you know, it's all kind of make believe, which
aside from like the deity thing, like maybe play an evil character. Like if you're a sort of person that I mean, everybody believes themselves to be good, and it's kind of funny in D&D they still have the holdovers of the alignment thing, with like good and evil, despite the fact that no person truly believes that they are evil. It's purely a thing because it's a fantasy. It's like a Tolkienist sort of like thing. Like Sauron is evil, orcs are evil, they work for the Dark Lord sort of thing.
Asmodeus is evil.
But like if you I would imagine that you are a person that believes that you are a good person. But you know, why not play an evil character? It might be fun.
Because most time your party will outrightly kill you if they find out
playing an evil character is significantly harder than playing a good character.
The idea of playing evil is more appealing than the reality of playing an evil character, because you have to be very likable to play.
That I was just about to say that one massive piece of advice: if you want to play an evil character, play a likable evil character. Like,
and do not let anyone
befriend your allies and before letting them know you're evil.
You know what they say: keep your allies close and keep your enemies closer.
Humans are evil for orcs because they kill them. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it's all about perspective.
But I would say that, well, how about this? You're a good person, and you've had the revelation that devils are necessary, because if you're a paladin, you kill a person. If there are no devils, there's nobody to punish them for eternity.
Yeah.
Devils are kind of necessary. So maybe you're playing maybe a character that's enlightened, and devils are eternally fighting the war against demons, keeping from devouring our existence. Is like maybe you're a paladin who's like been enlightened, so you're like, if ever you come across the devil, you're cautious, you're wary, but you're like, thank you for your service, kind of, for fighting that war and surviving and doing your job. Devils love a pat on the back, and certainly they never get one. That can lead some very interesting things. Not that you're not saying that you're kidding yourself. They're evil, but you're just a bit more savvy to. Everybody has a place in the great wheel. That can having somebody that is looking through that lens. That's kind of different.
And so Anonymous asks, is it evil if you're a good person but choose questionable methods to kill enemies or bad choices?
I would say chaotic. That
it really depends on intent. It depends on intent.
Is it like the spot the greater good and all that stuff? You get those moral dilemmas when you're in epic levels. It's a moral slog.
I would definitely say, yeah, that would be a chaotic good character. Basically, the thing with alignment is that
kill a guy who surrendered. Yeah, it's based on intent. There's a lot of factors that go into deciding if something's evil or not when you're role playing.
As well, the prisoner dilemma.
So,
because of how detrimental is it to you that the guy go on living? If he really opposes, if you let him live after he surrenders, and he goes back and tells,
So Anonymous then says, if I kill a guy who surrendered, for example, it depends on what you believe. Or
after your insight checks, if
you
think that he's going to go back and tell people, and that's going to, endanger endanger you. There's a lot of, dice rolls and things to determine the morality going forward, I would say.
So this is kind of like the difference between law, chaos, good, and evil. So a lawful character is pretty much exactly what that sounds like. You respect
hard line.
You respect like the rule of law. You adhere to tradition. You believe in
someone
honor,
asks for help, no matter what that is.
Chaos.
You do.
Chaos isn't so much anarchy and destruction. It basically just means you like the freedom to do what you want. Because law is basically saying that like you must do this and adhere to these rules of the land. Chaos is basically like, I do not want to adhere to those rules. I'm going to do whatever I want.
A chaotic good is generally going to try to do their best, and a lawful good is going to do what the law says, whether that might hurt other people or not. That is the law. Goes as well for evil. Chaotic good, they're going to try and do their best, case by case by case. A chaotic evil, I'm number one. It's all about me. I do what I want when I wanna.
Yeah.
Who cares if it hurts someone? It's about me.
Anonymous asks.
It's like.
Yeah, Anonymous then asks, well, if there's no such reason and just the character wanting to kill that guy, then that's probably chaotic neutral to
evil.
Any sort of like evil side.
And then we're getting kind of into murder hobo style of play, and
so
unless all the party is kind of framed that way, it can become very difficult for the campaign. Which we will get into that. So I think we've kind of touched on the flexible, open minded, and this kind of goes to the figuring out what type of player you are. If you like games that are dungeon crawls, if you like that rolling for initiative, if you like more games about diplomacy and role play, if you are kind of moderate, understanding what your your play style is. Not just like, is this game on the right day of the week in time for me? The next thought is this group playing in a style that is suited to me? Am I suited to them? That is really a burgeoning, important criteria. Well, it's becoming that way, so that games don't fall apart and they have, people can finish a campaign and it be meaningful. So player types. Dun, 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 dun.
Doink.
So this is the 8 gamer alignments by Doug at Blue Boxer Rebellion.
Yeah.
And I actually kind of agree with it. It's like an alignment chart for the player, not the character. And instead of good, evil, lawful, chaos, there is actor, gamer, selfish, reasonable. Selfish was originally something else, but we can't have that on the stream because it's not mature stream.
Also, I don't know if it conveys it.
It conveys it really well.
Yeah.
It conveys it really. If you're a gamer, then
it conveys it really well.
If you sort of notice like the very obvious edits to this graph, look at it yourself.
Yeah.
It's not that bad, but we can't swear on the stream.
Well, we try not to.
Yeah, try not.
Especially middle of the day, in some parts of the world.
So the alignments for the player go true actor, which is the top one. Thinks dramatically, ignores the metagame, plays in character. Then the next one down from there is reasonable actor, doesn't burden others with dramatics, willing to play against character for the sake of the overall game. Next is true reasonable, lets others share limelight, ignores loopholes, cooperative and accepting. Then there's the reasonable gamer, plays the game, not the rules, contributes between conflicts.
Rule of cool.
Basically.
Those are cool.
Then there's true gamer.
Yeah.
Thinks
the rules
tactically,
lawyer.
Sees the metagame, plays out of character, gets jollies for power-ups or XP. Then there's the selfish gamer. Min-maxes everything, brags about the PC's stats, uses rules as a weapon. That is my most hated category of player, by the way.
Speaking as a DM,
I have 21 strength.
Nobody likes the selfish people.
And if I find the tome of readership, then I can push that to 22.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then if I add a belt of Minotaur's swag, I get +7 to my carrying capacity, and I also get +8d7 bonus damage against chaotic neutral characters while wielding a great axe broad katana javelin.
I don't even mind people that like doing that, like optimizing their characters. I don't mind people that view D&D as a game more so than a what's the word? More like an acting session.
Yeah.
Because... Guys, wait! I'm running for president now. I need a good speech.
Yeah.
I have 27 strength.
Just proceeds to read you their sheet.
And 16 dexterity.
Because at the end of the day, D&D is a game. A lot of people sort of don't sort of comprehend that, but it is a game.
Some people get fixed on that so much that it is a.
It is not a story, and it's not a movie. You are playing a game at the end of the day, so if for me personally, I would sort of like lean away from actor and be more true reasonable. If I were to
I'm a
class
mixture
myself.
of true actor, true reasonable. And the more I get back into improv, the more I'm able to do limelight. because for some of us actors who stray away from improv, scene stealing, as we call it, becomes very easy, and it is something that can happen when you're playing with people who are not approaching the game in a theatrical way. You can because they're not used to interacting and dealing with the world and buying in to the degree you are, so you can scene steal very, very easily. We automatically inherently grab the brass ring easier. But going back to improv, it kind of, makes you recenter and go back to yes and, which leads to more cooperation, which leads to everyone working together, which is great. Improv is a great tool to finding out like how you can be amazing and at the same time make someone else amazing. It really I don't know how to convey the satisfaction or feeling to somebody who's never really done it, but I think that if most people try it, they would find it very pleasing, exceedingly.
It's like a little kid who wants to become Batman, and they suddenly get a Batman costume. Like, wow, I'm Batman. That was great.
Yeah. And if somebody else plays their Robin, and then they go back and forth, and they're really good. It's a very strange thing to kind of
Robin,
kind of convey.
My shark repellent. Okay, boss.
So the other two categories are true selfish, which is self-aggrandizing, exploits loopholes, uncooperative, and whines. And then the selfish actor, scenery-chewing thespian, justifies any vile act as in character. So ideally,
you're not selfish, and you try to avoid being a true gamer.
Selfish actor, I think, could also be characterized as chaotic insane, where they just do whatever they think is cool at the time, whether it screws over everyone else and ruins the game. It's just, this is the moment I want to do this because it sounds cool. There's not a whole lot of selfish actor. I think would be impulsive, should be selfish impulsive. It would be a better term for that, selfish impulsive.
See, I would say ideally, as a player, you want to aim to not be selfish, and then any other category is fine if that's where you find yourself in. However, if you are a gamer, maybe don't. If you are a true gamer, maybe don't pair up with a true actor, and if you're a true actor, don't pair up with a true gamer, because you won't have a fun time together, because you're both playing the games for very different reasons.
I don't know. I mean, the true actor could like the realism tactically that a true gamer would be able to bring, because maybe the true actor hasn't played a lot of games, so they don't have a lot of strategy and like war thinking. So maybe that could bring a sense to them. It's like, well, I don't really know how that works out.
But then,
if that kind of tactical can be like, well, this is how this works in games.
But then, if you are willing to do that, you are a reasonable actor. That's the point. Is that reasonable people are willing to cooperate with the other person on the other side of the spectrum. I
don't know. A true actor is going to be looking for authenticity, and a true gamer could help facilitate that accuracy. I would never want to disencourage anybody from working with anybody or not ganging up with anybody, because it's all about collaboration.
I would say that, like, try at the very least, but like some people just how they view the game just does not gel with other people. And if you are viewing the game as entirely a game and you're not interested in the role playing, then that's fine, because there's no real wrong way to play the game, but you're not going to have fun with people
It
or a
won't go as
group
well.
that are more interested in role playing. And if you're more interested in role playing, you're not going to have fun with a group that's more interested in playing it as a war game, is what I'm saying.
So maybe that comes back to understanding your expectation and your play style.
Very much so.
If you sense that, it's a group that is, murder hoboing is their style, or they have more of a Warhammer type of style, or they have more of a character centric, we are our characters and we speak in characters. And if you're not comfortable with that, then, understanding that that's that type of game, and maybe that's not your situation.
And I'm not in the habit or of telling people how to play the game. Like you can play the game however you want. And to be honest, like as I say, I am of the opinion that D&D is a game. It's not a narrative. It's not a film. It's not a movie. The DM is not a director. And the players aren't the characters aren't the players aren't characters in the film or actors in a film. It's a game at the end of the day.
Collaborative storytelling.
Collaborative storytelling.
The DM's like, that's just...
There are other games that do collaborative storytelling a lot better than D&D.
There are. They're better, but I would say that most RPGs kind of the ones that I like to play. I like to share a shared storytelling.
But then that sort of like lends it. That sort of lends it towards like, for example, disliking the fact that dice don't allow you to do what you want your character to do in the game, which I've seen some players complain about, because they had a very fun idea that they wanted their character to do and thought it'd be really cool, but then they rolled 3 and they view that low roll not as an opportunity to do something else, but as what they wanted to do, their script being broken.
If a DM wants a game where people are going to think outside of the box and give them really interesting things like that, having dice determine every little thing is probably not going to be as conducive to that type of style. Of course, the dice are going to betray you sometimes, but there are some DMs in games that happen where they just roll like a whole lot, and you're not going to get a whole lot of creative. People are going to be less likely to want to do things as creatively, because what's the point? It's just going to come down to dice. I needn't try and think of the world in that way.
That's and this is kind of like going away from RP Essentials and more towards like GMing techniques, but that is kind of why that like is advised to only roll the dice if there is an interesting result of failure.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, for one thing, rolling the dice actually takes a small amount of time. It's about 30 seconds or so. If you're going to be rolling the dice for every single tiny little decision, it kind of stretches the game longer than it should be. So, for example, if the rogue walks up to a door and says, "I want to get through the other side of this door," you know that the character of the rogue, you know that they have lockpicking tools. You know that if they sat there and basically picked the lock for I don't know how long it would be, the door would open. And there's not really anything on the other side. And if they can't unlock the door, what would happen? Nothing. Just tell them they unlock the door. That's what I mean by that.
Okay.
So there is a way to basically play D&D in a way that like facilitates the people that are more into narrative role playing. But again, I would say at the end of the day, it is a game. So there are going to be certain situations where you're going to come up to things and you're going to fail and you're going to have to deal with that. And that's not a bad thing.
No, it's not. I tend to look at you as collaborative storytelling and just a little bit more than you do,
And
just a little bit.
That's fine. Like
Yeah.
as I say, like I tend to shift more towards true reasonable and reasonable gamer.
Yeah.
I'm more so towards true reasonable, I guess, because like as a DM, I have to roleplay everything, and I like roleplaying. It's really fun. But yeah, that's there's nothing wrong with that.
True
Like,
actor and true reasonable is me.
yeah.
Amalgamation of
What
both.
about you, Panda?
I'd say most of the time I'm a reasonable actor, but I kind of just like shift between reasonable actor and reasonable gamer.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. But then I play against character type a ton.
And
I
then
like playing against myself. It's hilarious. Like if I fail on something, it's just like, oh hey, look at
You do
opportunity
that
to do something
outside
stupid.
of games, if we're being honest.
I do it outside of games. I do it inside of games. It just makes everything more interesting.
I'm probably Anonymous says I'm probably near upright, but I never played. It's just my opinion. This is the D&D player spectrum. I've seen this before.
Yeah.
And that's the cross spectrum between indifferent to role playing, a role playing enthusiast, and optimizer who ignores the rules.
I'm roleplay enthusiast if I'm
Yeah. I
definitely.
would honestly say that like you don't want to be towards any of the extremes. I would say a good point to be would be around the here BDMs section, and then
You would because you're a DM.
yeah.
That's totally biased, but that's okay.
That is, yeah.
That's okay. It's like kind of recognizing what you are. There's and knowing what you like. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that a lot of people are floating around kind of not figuring that out, and so it's always kind of gray. It's always kind of a foggy area.
You'd be amazed the amount of people who I would class like way towards the left of that chart.
Yeah, but I mean, until people like know this of themselves, or start thinking about that more, the more difficult it is to make campaigns and good games happen. Games that like come to a conclusion rather than just kind of fizzling out and falling apart. So think about it.
I love the green section. 10-page backstory. Read the player's handbook.
Yeah, interesting.
I've seen many small novels worth of like backstory. I assure you, I have not read any of them.
Yeah. A couple of paragraphs is enough.
Yeah.
Like
if you're gonna write a backstory, a paragraph or two is enough.
Yeah.
Man, I've been in some campaigns just from random people recruiting others on Roll20, and they just want like pages of backstory. I'm setting my ass like, okay, you got this homebrew world with homebrew races, homebrew classes, homebrew everything.
Yeah.
And you want me to make like freaking 10-page backstory?
Yeah. That's just
gonna happen.
New material for a thing that I don't really understand.
And the thing is as well is that there is nothing more boring than like reading other people's fan fiction. I swear to God, like nobody gets this, but like unless you're like someone like Matthew Colburn is that his name?
Matt C. I don't know. Just call him Matt C.
That guy who everyone loves, the guy with the beard.
Beardy beards.
Talk amongst yourself. I find out who this guy is.
Okay. Ta.
Oh, I found him. Matthew Colville.
Colville.
Matthew Colville. I've watched some of his videos. He's quite good, but like
Or,
unless you're someone
Mercer with his
Matt
Caldori
Mercer.
stuff.
Unless you're someone like
Yeah.
Matthew Colville, Matt Mercer, Felicia Day, Will Wheaton, nobody cares about your backstory. Nobody cares about your homebrew. I'm sorry to say this, but like it's only interesting to you, and your close friends.
I'm gonna say that Broken World is interesting. Really, a lot of people love it.
Yeah, but that's because they're playing in the game.
Yeah, but I mean, it tracks new people, and new people will invest in the lore, like people that didn't start out with it initially. I think that
that's
a certain sect of the hobby, they will enjoy it. But by and large, as you say, you know, if it's not a printed,
basically.
you know,
and
published like that, typically not.
And that's not saying that like
some exist.
What you're going to do as a player isn't interesting. It's just that like if it's stuff that you've written down and you haven't played, it's just fan fiction. And people are more interested in when they're playing a game, they are more interested in stuff that happens in the game so that you can refer back to it. That's what I'm saying. Actually, this is like reiterated because I've got like a section that's next actually.
Oh, it's almost as if we've this train of thought is kind of actually.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, look, another very smooth transition. Yep.
Yeah.
Advance the slide.
So the next slide is Insomnia Jack's tips for playing. Number one.
Some of Jack's tips.
Insomnia Jack's. Yeah.
This is a DM specifically. This is a DM's idea of tips. Go ahead, DM.
Then there's a little meme. Most people rejected his message. Skill checks don't crit. Shut up. They hated the DM because he told them the truth.
They do.
They do not.
No, you cannot. You can't crit a skill check.
Nobody knows this, and this ties in very closely to tip number one. Read the rule book. I will be.
It says that when you do a 20, you've made the check. You see all there is to see.
If you have a -7 to acrobatics and you roll a 20, get a 13 on a check that requires a 15.
You fail.
No, you're right. If you have a negative to your thing, you roll a 20, then yeah, that doesn't match. But barring, that you're like a 0 on it and up, I tend to make that connection.
Here's what I tend to do in that sort of like situation is that like if you're gonna roll for a skill check and you roll a 20, I normally add like a little bit of flavor to it. So instead of saying that like you jump across the gap, I'll say that you do a flying somersault across the gap or something, like something to make the player
makes me feel like I've critted.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it makes you feel nice.
Solidifies in my mind that I have critted, thus reaffirming that I have critted. So in my mind as the player, yay 20, barring I don't.
On the other hand, if they roll that exact same thing, but instead of a gap, it's a 50-foot ravine that goes down like 500 billion feet. No, you're gonna somersault fancily into the ravine. You're dead.
Yeah, you're dead. You're gonna die.
Crit 20 is not gonna allow you to jump that.
Exactly. Sometimes, if you look in the rule book, it says the difficulty. It says the difficulty classes for everything, DCs for everything. The DC goes higher than 20, so you can end up with like a 35 or 40 DC for certain checks. If you roll a 20 and you add your your skill modifier onto it, and it doesn't get above what the difficulty thing is, you can still fail. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't realize this because they just don't read the rule book. And what that effectively does.
That's the DM to tell them that it's like I rolled a 20, but all these numbers, and then they just show them the math.
Is it really up to the DM to tell the players how to play the game?
Yeah. In that instance is because a lot of the time, by and large, usually it works out. So in those instances where 20 doesn't do it, that's kind of surprising for them. That's a little atypical.
It wouldn't be
Well, you gotta
surprising if they
remember-
read the rulebook.
Well, and you will submit as well that it is kind of atypical when you roll a large number like that and something not work, especially when they tack on the modifiers and all.
That
Usually
is true. Usually, if somebody is trying to attempt something that's impossible, I will just tell them straight away that
and
it's
they
impossible.
don't know the difficulty rating you've set it at as well. So it is kind of like that is sort of on your end because you have all those facts. They don't. They're just rolling.
There's this thing called
but
common sense.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, but the same thing is they sometimes you just cannot know that something
Your character has physical limitations. They have physical limitations.
But
you can't do everything you want to do.
But sometimes something that looks mundane and ordinarily, because the DM is clever and the DM wants to surprise you, they've made this seemingly common thing really challenging that they have no idea. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about. Those instances where they're completely in the dark. They don't know what they're doing is sometimes exceedingly difficult. They don't know that usually they rolled a 30 or something, that ain't gonna hack it.
Usually as well is that it's mainly
this
up
is
to
getting
it's
into
mainly up to the DM to sort of like describe the world around the players so that they know what it is. If I say that like there's you're standing on the edge of a cliff, there's a gap between you and another ledge over the other side, and somebody then says, I tried to jump across the gap. If I didn't tell them, if I then say, it's actually it's 100 feet wide, and then they'll say, but like you just described it as a gap, that's my fault for not describing the world around them. So they didn't understand that what they were doing was an impossible thing.
There's going to be breakdowns in communication.
There's always exceptions and things around the rules. But mainly what essentially I mean with the skill checks don't crit thing is that, as Panda just said, is that if rolling a 20 means that you always succeed any skill or anything that you attempt to do, it means there is a 5% chance that you can do anything. What that does to the health of a game is that it teaches a very bad lesson to the players that all they need to do is to roll a 20 and they can do anything. And I said that again, but
usually that works.
It's really important to know. It's really important to know that because how to describe this better. You want the players to. Can I fly?
No, you can fly if you have somebody put fly on you.
If you have, there's a spell for that. But
there's a spell for everything, just like there's a medication for everything. There's a spell for that.
I thought of it. You want to encourage the players to think around problems, to come up with creative solutions to solve things. You don't want them to bash their head against a wall, rolling dice, hoping to get that 20 to succeed. By and large, and you also don't want the thing that happened on Critical Role where they kept focusing on this chair. There was like a room that had been like really messed up, like things toppled over in it. But in the middle of this room was this chair. And they were all really focused on this chair. Why is this chair here? Why isn't it toppled over? Right.
And Matt was like, sometimes a chair is just a chair, people.
It is.
So, that can happen where they just hyper focus in on something. It happens. It's hilarious. And, sometimes a chair is just a chair.
Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Yeah.
Exactly.
So tip number 2 is you are an adventurer. That sounds very obvious, but you'll be amazed the amount of people who don't kind of like get this. And essentially, this is it doesn't necessarily just mean adventurer. It could be Netrunner, or if you're playing Cyberpunk 2020, or if you're playing that maid game, you are a maid. If you're playing the bear game, you are a bear. So many people will go into D&D and they'll have the setting laid out to them, and they'll create a character that isn't fit for that, for the game. So, for example, if you're playing D&D, it's a very typical D&D game where it's like you're going to be diving into dungeons, fighting monsters, risking your life to save princesses. Why would you make a cowardly character who doesn't want to risk their life?
It can be kind of funny.
I know it can be kind of funny, but like it's a little bit disruptive.
There's a skill that comes involved in nuance in playing that kind of character.
It can be done, but like especially if you're a new player, play an adventurer. Play somebody who wants to seek gold and risk their life fighting monsters to save princesses, all that stuff, because that's what the game's going to be about.
And you're going to hate this as a DM, but I'm going to say the only way to learn how to do these things nuancedly is to do them. And there are going to be some games that are really bad because you're learning how to play whiny without being exceedingly annoying. You're learning where that line is, but it kind of has to be done if ever you want to have a diverse background. It's hard, and I know that's like kind of when starting out in general, keep in mind of it. But there comes a point if ever you want to branch out and have a variety of personas and emotions and backgrounds that there is going to be that weird, awkward stage where the DM is going to suffer, your fellow players are going to suffer because you're figuring it out, and sometimes it's going to work. Sometimes it's going to fail. At the end of it, you're like, oh, wow, I know where that line is now. And that knowledge, the next DM is going to really reap reward from how that other DM suffered, because it's like, wow, you can play a very dynamic character, and sometimes you're so reluctant, but then you go ahead and you do it, and it's kind of like you have to do it just like a DM who doesn't like to do voices or whatever. If they never do the voices, those voices they're not going to get any better. They're not going to improve. The only thing you can do is to do them. But always be conscious of how your experiment might be making other people, affecting other people's game. And try to assure them, like, I know this is awkward. I know it's thing. Thank you for being patient with me. Whenever you try to do something or you comes around, I'm sure I will get, you will get your revenge, because then I'll have to be patient and stuff when you're going through a thing and trying to, figure out a different character personality and stuff. So I would say that.
What do you think, Brandon? You there?
What?
What do you think? Damn it!
Oh yeah, I'm Brandon.
What do you think about tip number 2? You are an adventurer.
You are an adventurer. Be proactive. Actually, play somebody who's intent on being active with the party in doing group activities with everybody else. Panda's brain was disconnected.
Get a buddy, get an adventure buddy.
Well, easiest way to do that is just to find somebody you mesh well with. If you're constantly role playing with strangers and there's no chemistry between anybody, the role playing just dies down immediately. It's like, oh hey, I'm gonna introduce myself, and then after I introduce myself, let's get on with the quest. And
like
as Jack was saying, if you're playing a scaredy cat who doesn't want to do anything,
maybe you want to stick with the person who's really brave and strong, who can protect you.
Exactly. There's gotta be
Get 'em,
something.
buddy.
There's gotta be some interesting interactions you can come up with.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't to tell people how to play the game. If they want to play D&D and they want to play a diplomat in a political intrigue game,
The bottom line is you
that's
gotta
fine.
find some way to contribute.
Yeah, exactly.
Reach out and touch someone.
That's mainly what I mean.
Connection.
Like, design, make your character proactive in the sense that they can contribute to the goal of the party. Is mainly what that means. So yeah, tip number 3: play to win, but accept defeat.
Yep, it's going to happen.
Yeah,
like death and taxes, defeat and or things not working out. It's going to happen. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
I have honestly
DM
had
is really hoping for it.
I have honestly had people quit the game and leave.
All DMs have.
Due to their character dying in the game. It sucks because like you kind of get attached to your character.
Or maybe throughout a combat, their dice were just botching and they just couldn't do it, so they're like, "Forget this," you know. It happens. It happens.
But again, the flip side to that is that like a lot of people will say that you shouldn't play D&D to win. You should just play it like
That's why I look at it as a
to role play and whatnot. I disagree because I am of the opinion that D&D is a game, and games are meant to be won. And in this sense, maybe your idea of winning might be telling the best story possible, as opposed to getting treasure and killing monsters. So again, you can play D&D as a role-playing game to win. But in order to
the DM wants good story, the player wants good story.
But in order to play in order to play a good role-playing story, in order to tell the best story possible,
You have to have bosses.
Yeah, you are going to lose at some point.
That makes an more interesting story.
You might, for example, yeah, exactly. Like, compare it to Game of Thrones or something. How boring would it have been if Tyrion would never have faced adversity at any point?
I just kind of got sad just at the mentioning of Game of Thrones. It's too soon, Jack. It's too soon.
Like,
it's been weeks.
He was.
I don't care. It's too soon.
He was the hand of the king of Joffrey, and then was convicted for his murder and spoilers for a 5-year-old season.
That is nose cut.
Kills Dumbledore.
A lot of horrible things happen. Imagine being Theon, okay?
Exactly, and all those losses adds to their characters. Just like the losses that your character will go through will add to the story of your character. Not every single loss has to end in death. Admittedly, when fighting against like monsters in a dungeon, a lot of the losses will end with death. But again, like even if your character dies, it will add to the story for the other characters because they'll have to sort of like deal with the fact that one of their party members have died. You might have been like the prince trying to reconnect to, the kingdom of another land, and then you die before you arrive there. So now the story is about, maybe they have to find an imposter prince or the prince's long lost brother to take his place or something. Again, death isn't the end of the story. It just adds to it.
Some people think that DMs want your characters to die. A good DM who cares about story is not sitting down
if your character
wishing, hoping for thing, because that could very well bother their story, especially if they have a lot in a homebrew game where they've got plot hooks made specifically for characters. They don't want your character to die, really. So
like I do tend to root for people's characters to win. That's another rule for DMs is that like let the dice kill your players' characters. Don't don't you kill your players' characters.
No.
So
But
that
yeah, you
means
can
that
remake a
yeah.
character usually if you've gotten in really well with the group, you have chemistry with these people. They're almost gonna say they're gonna try and resurrect your character first of all if they can. If they can't, then if you've been really good with the group, the DM's gonna turn to you and say, okay, make a character at this level so that it doesn't interrupt story flow and you can come in at the same level with people, and they'll do the whole getting to know you thing.
That's
and
sorry.
Go on.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No.
I was just gonna say that that is a thing in D&D. Resurrection is a thing. So especially at later levels, death is only a roadblock.
A little hindrance. You could have where you as a player decide your spirit doesn't, adhere to the spell. If you want to make a new character, you can just use it as an excuse to make a new character. But Anonymous asks, if your character dies, does the game end for you? No, you can just make a new character.
Nope.
That's why I was talking about what I was talking about.
Yeah.
I've most characters I've ever had in a single campaign would be like 5 or 6.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Jeff, he's had a whole bunch of characters, and it's just because I usually play really well with him, and I like good chemistry, and it's do you realize I haven't been able to graft on to anything because you keep dying and it keeps upsetting the party dynamic and flow? Please stop it.
I've once had an experience where in one campaign
it is incredibly frustrating
where one person and his character would just kept dying almost every other session.
I know.
It was just really unlucky. It was funny.
That could be it's funny, but it's when that happens, it is again in its own way a little bit destructive, and that's when you encourage the people around. Just I'm trying my best, bear with me. I'm not doing this to really intentionally mess with you.
Yeah, it's not really anyone's fault. The GM just ends up rolling a couple of dice, getting a lot of crits.
Yeah, but it can sometimes feel like it if this person keeps dying and dying and dying. It can start to feel personal. So then it's just a matter of reinforcing to people, I'm sorry, bear with me. I'm not trying to. I'm sorry. Good communication.
So the next point is your character exists in the world, which you've already done because that was in the earlier slide. I came up with these tips before I read the slide.
Your backstory can affect, kind of does have some bearing, but you are in the present.
Yeah.
Get over it.
And just to realist what we already went over, that when you are making a character to exist in a campaign setting, read what the campaign setting is about, and then make a character that would exist within that world. Don't just make a character that you want to play and then cram them into the world regardless, because it doesn't work. Well, it can work, but it's very disruptive for everyone else playing. Moving on. Tip number 5 is live your story, not your backstory.
Well, that's what I was saying. Your backstory can help formulate your personality and who you are, but you are in the present. And if you've made, say, a what is it? I'm always talking about what's a
Samsara.
No, edgelord. If you've made an edgelord, it could be that your edgelordiness, you have your character arc and it gets resolved. And because you've gotten resolve or whatever, you can't go on being an edgelord. It's been resolved. You've overcome possibly the thing that's bugged you. So now you've got to be in the present, and you have to have I've achieved that. I gotta recalibrate. I gotta, that's not weighing on me as much anymore. You know, I have to, it doesn't make sense that I would be nearly as melancholic or whatever, you know? So, you know, do be in the present and not have your backstory just be so on your shoulders if it really doesn't make sense for it to.
Well, this is also a thing that I noticed. Like, I think this is probably the most common, and I hesitate to call it mistake because, like, again, I'm not in the business of telling people how to play D&D, but I think it is kind of a mistake. Especially considering that, like, when you start a new game, a new campaign, you're playing a level 1 character. Now, a level 1 character can be very easily killed against 10 in the rules as written.
7 to 12 hit points.
In the rules as written, your character could be very easily killed by about 8 commoners.
Yeah, you could sneeze and die.
Well, it's not so
You're
much that.
Very frail.
It's that
you are. You step on a nail and die.
Your characters are slightly more adept at being an adventurer than a common person.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Slightly more.
That goblin has 7 hit points and you have 9.
Yeah. Like you're barely stronger than a goblin.
Or if you're playing
and if that goblin rolls well, you're dead.
But a lot of people, when they make their characters, they will go your character got a bad cold, game over.
Exactly.
It's not as bad as that. But yeah, a lot of people, when they make a character, they will write their characters' backstories, and it will be just pages and pages and pages of like prior achievements that they've accomplished. They're the swordsman that's killed the king, or they vanquished the lich demon of Halagar, or all this stuff, achievements, things that they've done, and so forth. And then when
life, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and then when they pop into the game, that's all they talk about.
Oh, I did this and that, and then you just think, well, wow, they're a hypochondriac, or they're delusional because I just saw how much damage he did, and he got hurt pretty bad, and this makes no sense.
What, do you want a fucking medal or something?
And exactly, this kind of ties on to my thing about the like nobody really cares about other people's fan fiction. Is that the game is the events. The game is the events that are happening right now. Your backstory is just meant to be a guide so that you understand your character, and as a reference so you can get back into character. What you want to be playing is the game, the events that are happening in right now. It's not your backstory. You're not playing your backstory. That's all that means. And play the present, not the past, basically. And if that seems surprising or interesting, like, maybe try it. Maybe try making a character with, like, basically, he was born a serf, grew up, got taught how to use a sword by his father, and then left the village to find adventurer. Like, make it really tiny, and then just experience adventure in the game.
I know that my husband, I think it was Bob. Anyway, his like, for the first character he ever made was a guard for the post office.
Bob the Builder, can he mail it?
No, like
fighter thing, and he was a guard for a post office, and his thing later on was doing everything in triplicate, and he's English, Jack, so is this making any sense? He was just a very by the book. He almost should have been lawful good, in my opinion, and he should have played a paladin, because he would have been really good. But I mean,
it sounds like Terry Pratchett going postal.
He's
in a way, but it was good. The DM, everybody loved the character.
Sounds good.
And his goal was to get a fancy hat. You know, he had very manageable goals, and to go to the officers' ball.
Yeah, that sounds
wear
good.
A fancy hat. That,
Like it. Like it already.
He made very reasonable goals that, you know, he could achieve. So, you know, always play a guard, the town guard at the post office, and he like had this whole little backstory with like the clerk behind the desk. I think her name was Marjorie or something. It wasn't a backstory that was like made him epic or something. It made him interesting.
Yeah.
It didn't particularly make his abilities better, but it made him interesting. So maybe using your backstory not to like shore up the things that your character should be able to do. I'm this great swordsman. It should be how does that make you interesting? It doesn't. Backstory should make you interesting.
So the next one is number 6. Engage the fantasy as reality.
Actors are good at this.
Yeah.
This is the advantage that actors have.
That's two things basically. One is basically when the world gets described to you, try to envision yourself in that fantasy and then engage with it as if it is the real world. And then what that then means is that, like, say for example,
it's the difference between saying, well, Topsy goes and sits down at the table, and saying, I go and I sit down at the table.
Okay, it's like reading a book, except you're the protagonist.
Or say for example,
you're Harry Potter.
Say for example, you're in a library, and you've just chased the evil warlock Zognok into there, but he's disappeared, and there's no sign of him whatsoever. And the wizard goes, well, I know he's probably used a spell to get out of here. What do you then say? Do you say, I know,
I'm gonna go climb up one of the tall ladders, and I'm gonna see if I can climb to the top shelf and stand up there if I can see him?
Yeah.
I don't say Topsy climbs the ladder and takes a look. I say, I'm gonna climb the ladder.
Yeah.
When I get up there, do I see any? I'm looking.
Yeah. You know? So don't sort of say that, like, can I see him? Can I roll perception? Say something like, I know, I'm going to climb up to the top of the, I'm going to climb the ladder, you know, those ladders that they use for the bookshelves. I'm going to climb up to the top of there and, like, look around to see if I can see if he's got to somewhere else. And then what
do I see with my little gnomey eyes?
The GM will then say, okay, cool, roll perception or something. Or if you're the wizard says, blast. I know he's probably used a spell to get out of here. I'm gonna check with arcane. How about instead, I get down on my hands and knees and I scrub around on the floor looking for arcane runes. You know, something like that. Or the rogue being a little bit crafty.
He throws flour everywhere.
Thinks that he's
I
escaped.
did that once.
Yeah.
Invisibility? What is that?
He
flour.
Yeah, that could work as well. I was going to say that, like, maybe there's a hidden door. So instead of saying, can I check for a hidden door, say, I know, I start grabbing at the books and pulling at them, seeing if one of them is actually a lever. You know, that's all that means. Engage the fantasy as if it is real. Think about what you would do in that fantasy and then describe those actions.
In character.
Yeah.
Hopefully, preferably. First person.
Well, I mean,
there are times that you just gotta say.
I tend to roleplay in first person. Yeah, I'll say that I do this, I do that. Some people do third, like Grognak walks up to the bar and says hello. I know.
It's like, why couldn't you just saunter up to the bar and Hey, how you doing? How you doing? You know,
It's just different styles. Some people prefer
Yeah.
to talk in the third person.
But your DM is hoping that you'll buy all in.
Panda always talks the third person because Panda's the best.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes, Dwayne.
Suave.
Dwayne
Lady
Panda.
killer.
Third person role playing is basically, instead of saying that I walk up to the bar and say, "Hello, how are you doing?" You would say, Groknak walks out of the bar and says hello to the barman, and that's fine. It's not how I role play, but you know, if that's what you want to do, then fine. It's there's no real disadvantage to it. It's a little less it's a little less personal, so you might find it a little bit more difficult getting into character. Yeah.
I like to keep it third person, so there's a distinction from when we're actually role playing and when there's like some minor metagaming going on. Like, oh wait, what was that tiny detail that you just talked about earlier?
Yeah, looks third person usually comes in when we're trying to figure stuff out of character.
Usually as well, I tend to do an accent or a voice for my characters, so people know when I'm out of character, when I'm in character.
Yeah.
That's another thing as well. But yeah, number 7. I'm sort of rushing through these because it's taking a while.
Yeah.
Number 7, pick your battles.
Yep. Some things just aren't worth nitpicking about.
This could be like literal battles or like physical or metaphorical battles.
Yeah.
So yes, again, like some things aren't worth arguing about. For example, you're in a labyrinth. There's a path to your right and there's a path to your left. Which way do you want to go? Why? You know, you really want to go right, but this guy really wants to go left. What would you rather do? Come to agreement fairly quickly, or argue about it for 30 minutes? It's infuriating.
It depends if you want to, like, you know, there might try and glean more information, but sometimes it just, if you can't know which is better, if there's no way, if there's nothing to say, you should or should, then it doesn't matter. Probably both are equally horrible.
I honestly think that there is nothing more infuriating as a DM if when the players are like arguing over something that is, you know, as the DM is incredibly petty and unimportant, but they take up about half the game doing it.
They don't know, but they don't have that information to know what is.
The thing is that like after about 5 minutes, like you can add in hints, to sort of like nudge them along, and that's perfectly cool. It's not railroading. Just do it.
Yeah.
They will thank you.
It's like, guys, this is really inconsequential. I'm not going to screw you. This isn't where you get screwed over. Trust me.
Usually in character is a nice way. Like, for example, passive perception is a lifesaver. So,
but if they fail it, it's like, damn.
Well, passive perception is like, it's just a number.
I thought,
so
passive
you
perception,
just choose the character that has the highest perception, and just say like, you feel a faint breeze on the left side of your cheek. There might be air coming from that direction.
But sometimes that's the character that doesn't involve itself or doesn't speak very often.
Yeah.
And so, and when that happens, that's hard. That's hard when, because that's happened.
Yeah, there are ways to nudge them in the direction, but it also means literal battles, as in actual fight. Not every single, and if the DM really knows their salts, not every single potential is worth their salt. Yeah, not every single potential encounter that you're going to come across as a player, is
supposed to be thought.
Well, no, exactly, and it might not even be balanced in your favor.
You know, it's like playing Dark Souls and just running off to a high level area as a level 1 dude and getting your ass kicked.
Yeah. It's like, I think that I've crossed into a place I'm not yet prepared for. So, like, sometimes,
for example, like if you're camping in the wilderness, camping outside of a dungeon or something, and you're awoken in the night by an owlbear searching through your pack, searching for
Curious
food.
little happy owlbear.
Don't attack it. If you're level 1.
You don't need to. You don't need... Yeah.
Yeah.
Scutter up that tree and stay there and pray that it doesn't come after you.
And then
let it have what it wants.
Some people would argue that, like, as a DM, it's unfair to put a really high level creature against a level 1 party at that point in the game.
Yes
but not every encounter is meant to be just solved by killing. You can...
Some of that is just showing the world, like, this is a thing that's in this world.
You can run away, which then leads us on very quickly to point number 8. Learn when to run.
Yep.
Yeah, know when to be like, okay, this is a nope out situation.
Anonymous just added, characters having breakfast, which should go first, cereals or the milk? 4 hours to discuss which is best.
Yes!
Yep.
Yes. Some of that can be very funny. Some of that, is role play, and it can lead to some good things. People learning how people think and blah, 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 blah.
You can be surprised, like, how much you can get done in a 4-hour session. Just by making sure that, or how little. If you have an idea of what you want to do, kill some orcs in a camp, or get some goblins out of a mine, or persuade the merchants to deal with these people. Have that in goal, and then work towards it. You can get it done, like, very easily. Whereas in a lot of people will take like 5, 6, 10 sessions to do it. And if each session is a week...
Depends on what they're happy doing. It depends. If they're happy...
Yeah. If they're happy doing it, that's fine. But, like...
some people, that's how they want to play.
Yeah, exactly. But, like...
It's not right, it's not wrong, as long as, they're in a group where that is cool.
This is like everything that I say. These tips are basic suggestions. And if you haven't tried it before, maybe try it, because you might enjoy it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we'll
tip number 8. Anonymous should play. So tip number 8: learn when to run. That is deadly important. You don't need.
Yep. You will die. The DM will kill you. They should kill you.
You don't need to fight every single battle, and if a battle is not going your way, fleeing is a possibility.
We're boldly retreating. Retreat.
I've seen a lot
we
of
will go to the war room.
I've seen a lot of TPKs, which stands for total party kills, where like one character will die. Final boss, the first encounter of the first session. Yeah. One character will die, and the party will just keep fighting what is there, and then they'll start dropping like flies. And it never occurs to any of them to run away.
We had a campaign where it was pretty deadly, and a new guy came in and he wanted to bug out, but we were like, go big or go home. We're gonna do this thing, and it was hard. It was a baller. And I think we were like level 9. Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 of us, and it was hard. It was hard. It was a baller and something else, and but we kind of thought, can't always live in fear, but sometimes it is just, nope, you got to get out. The beholder's going to disintegrate you. Oh God, there's 6 more coming. Run.
So then. So moving on, because we've been on this page for quite a while, but dead ends are opportunities. Example, you cart to a locked door, and I use a locked door example scenario for a lot of my suggestions. But so the rogue says, "I know, I'm going to unlock the door." Fails the roll. The door is too difficult to unlock. I always say the door is too difficult to unlock rather than you fail to unlock the door, because that prompts the rogue to then say, I know, I'm going to try again. And if you were going to just keep trying again and again and again. There's no.
Well, eventually
no,
you make it, but you gotta say no. You did it.
There's
somebody else has got to try something.
Yeah,
Give somebody else a chance to a crack at some idea.
So yeah, you fail to unlock the door. That's now a dead end. However, rather than just keep hammering at the door, think of it as an opportunity. Instead, like, look around. Maybe the door was a lockpicking time loop. Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe the door was you wanted to break into someone's shop and you failed to unlock the door. Look around. Maybe there's an open window you can climb into. Say like I know. I stand back and look around the top windows to see if I can see if any of them are ajar. And the DM could say, yeah, actually one of them is ajar. It's right next to a tree. I know I'm going to try to climb up the tree, shimmy along the branch, and jump inside. Okay, that's a good. Roll an athletics check. That's what I'm saying. Dead ends. And I guess this then goes back onto savor the losses. Not every single failure, not every single dead end is a travesty.
Yeah.
And if you can't get through something that you're trying to get through,
casters will have ideas.
it might be a physical barrier or a guard that you want to bribe who doesn't
like diplomacy kind of thing.
Yeah, you can't be persuaded or bribed. Anything. Try to think of some way around it rather than just keep hammering yourself at that wall. Yeah.
Everybody's gonna have a more than likely. The other people in your group are gonna have a couple ideas. So.
And then the last one is your DM is not Matthew Mercer.
Which is you saying I am not Matthew Mercer. I know you are Jack.
Unless you are Matthew Mercer, unless you are literally a part of the Critical Role team of Vox Machina, your DM is not Matthew Mercer. And don't expect your DM to even want to be Matthew Mercer. A lot of people describe this, and it's called the Mercer effect. Your DM might not be as good. Your DM isn't as good. Nobody can be Matthew Mercer because Matthew Mercer is really good at the game, and maybe your DM isn't as good. It's not even that. Like there are so
I've seen Matthew Mercer fuck up.
Exactly. There are so many different ways of playing and DMing the game. Just because your DM is doing something that Matthew Mercer, or this can apply to anyone else, like in any other game, if some DM is doing it some way, it doesn't mean that your DM has to do it that way. There's tons of different play styles, tons of different ways of playing the game. D&D 5th edition especially is made to be modular, so that you can basically take the game, chop out bits that you don't want, put bits in, and that's fine. That means that like any way that anybody wants to play a game is completely cool. So to come into a game and then expect the DM to act in a certain way just because you've seen other DMs do that, and like the most dreaded quote from a player would be
anybody who sees a person do a thing kind of just assumes that, well, of course that's probably how everyone does it.
Yeah.
Which for good or bad, it's just about kind of realizing.
And Thomas says, don't worry, you're the number one DM in my heart. Well, you're the only one I know. Oh, thank you.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, the most dreaded comment from a player is that's not how they do it on Critical Role.
House rules, yo.
Yeah.
Even the Critical Role admits they have house rules.
Yeah. Like using potions as a bonus action is one they do. That
I had that was like back in thing, which I think is fair as long as the NPCs can do it too. If critical ones mean something, well, then they have to mean something for the NPCs as well.
Yeah.
That's called balancing.
And that's the end of the thing.
That bad to respect Matthew Mercer or his style, or to kind of want to take on some of the things that he's done because it is interesting, or you think you're going to try it. I would say that, though, because I have more of a theatrical style, therefore that is really appealing to me. But I do recognize, by and large, that only appeals to me because of my approach. So in my opinion, I would try to do some of the things that he does in the way that he does it, simply because I think that we just have a similar outlook. Somebody who was not like a performer or a theater type person probably would never think to go that direction, because it's just not how they're.
Well, there's other ways of
exactly.
GMing in a narrative way.
That's not how they would think to do it, but because we're both sort of performer type people, we can think similarly. Therefore, that appeals to me. It's not wrong. It's not right. It's just preference. But I've had some DMs that weren't at all performers, but very, very good DMs.
But mainly what I mean, I guess, is that you're not obviously you're not Matthew Mercer. You are you. Nobody is going to role play or DM the way that you do, and you do not role play or DM the same way as anybody else. So just make the game your own. Role play in the way that you find role playing comfortable, the way that you can do it the best. DM in the way that you find it the best way. Don't try to emulate other people. Like, be inspired. Take advice. Exactly, we're giving people advice right now, but like you can take some of these to heart, but don't use them as like a list of things that you have to do.
Hard line.
Exactly. If they're not things that you find comfortable and they don't work for you, find another way of doing it. That's totally cool. And I think like a lot of people, especially nowadays, because these like stuff like Critical Role, Matthew Colville, Will Wheaton, those sort of celebrities didn't exist when we were playing the game, and for a lot of like younger people, suddenly they've got all these people that are playing the game on Twitch or YouTube or whatever they're using to watch them, and they seem to have the impression that that's how you're supposed to play the game. And
if that's how, and then sometimes they expect this expectation from everybody else, but they are not able to even create them for themselves. Like they're not necessarily an actor, but they want everyone else to be, but then they can't even portray a character in the manner which they do on Critical Role. And that is because they weren't initially a performer.
Yeah. And like, I don't watch Critical Role. I watched a couple of episodes.
Watch anything.
I do. I used to watch Jesse Cox and his games. So there are some D&D games that like I do watch. One character I do like is Grog. He's quite funny.
Grog.
He's of that show. Of the episodes that I have seen for like research and stuff.
Research.
He's probably the character that I find the most entertaining. But the reason why Grog is such a good character is because he made him himself. He's been inspired by certain things. He's not trying to copy anyone else. You can't make a truly good character by copying somebody else. You can't be a truly good DM by copying somebody else's style or trying to emulate someone else's style. You've got to make it your own. That's all that means. But yeah, we've been on my slide for the longest amount of time now, so let's move on to the next slide. Things to avoid. And I think I've been talking for quite a while, so Bruce, do you want to take this one?
Please do, Bruce.
Yeah, okay. Okay, things to avoid. Number one, being a stickler for the rules. Nobody likes a rules lawyer, even if you do like a rules lawyer. If you keep going on and on and on about how the DM is not following the rules or how the house rules are stupid, then you are impeding the progress of the campaign, and you're just causing a disruption in general. Like here or there, you could just like tell the DM, oh wait, this isn't how the rules work, or oh, this is how my other DM did it, but okay, this is cool. But do not constantly go on about the freaking rules, okay? And wait, I just lost my train of thought right there. Yeah, I was gonna say
You were talking about the rules.
the rules.
It's almost like Bruce sees something shiny and he goes, "What?"
Yeah, basically, see, this is what happens when you get like no sleep. Let's see.
We go hard all day, all night, no sleep.
I would honestly
Exactly.
I would honestly say that like there is a clear difference between being a rules lawyer and being a stickler for the
helpful.
rules.
Yeah, there is.
There's a difference between helpful and then being, because those rules lawyers typically will trot out the rules on someone else, but then kind of you know.
Oh yeah.
We know this.
A rules.
We know.
There are very good opportunities in specific situations where you can bend or just completely ignore the rules, and that is the rule of cool, which in itself is a rule. So basically, you're following another rule, but you're ignoring the basic rules that are set up by the base game. So basically, according to the rule of cool, if you want to do something cool and it's really awesome, and your DM's also into it, then they'll probably bend the rules for your sake just so it could happen.
Dude.
There's a lot of DMs out there, including Jerry, probably also including Jack, I'm not exactly sure, that like employing the rule of cool. So if you want to do some really cool, dope stuff that'll be good for storytelling purposes later, go ahead.
Yeah.
You just got to be very creative. No, none of that generic stuff.
Yeah. Like, a lot of people trying to abuse the rule of cool will try to just keep doing outlandish stuff just in order to exploit that rule. That is that in my mind is rules lawyering. It has to come naturally. Like for example, one of my older campaigns, one of the characters, one of the players, he was playing a character called Otto, and he was really fun. Like his character got injured like a number of times, but never died.
Did he have a whole bunch of like cyber legs and arms and stuff?
No, it was in Burning Wheel, and in Burning Wheel, if your character gets injured, it's kind of in real life in medieval. If you were living in medieval history and you got stabbed, you can die from like blood poisoning more so than you can do from the injury. So getting hurt in Burning Wheel was like really a big deal. And he would just constantly kept getting like stabbed and stuff, and would spend like months like injured and like get back to like full health, and then just go out and like kill more people and stuff. It was very fun. But for some reason, they were clearing a fort out of enemies, and one of the enemies like ran towards the door, this gate door, in order to like try and open the gate to let more people outside in the courtyard, and he just immediately just shouted out like, "I'm gonna jump on top of him!" and everyone was just like, "What? Like you're on top of the like gatehouse?" Like, although technically,
bit of a fall.
Technically, it is snowing, and it was established that it was snowing quite heavily. So, like, you're already committed to this action right now.
Yeah.
So you are jumping off of this battlement, like, no matter what happens. I'm gonna say, if you roll, I think it's a, what's it called? If you roll like, what's it called? A die of fate, and you get a 1
percentile.
It wasn't percentile. It is a.
Well,
I can't remember which die it is for Burning Wheel, but it's a fairly low chance. If you manage to do it, we were going to say that like you can jump on the battlement, land on top of him into like a large pile of snow, and like only take like this amount of damage. And he managed to do it, and it was amazing. That's rule of cool. It's like it has to be an organic event that makes sense in the time, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But yeah, there is a difference between being a stickler for the rules and being a rules lawyer. A rules lawyer is something you don't want to be.
Using real world knowledge and logic in a non-realistic setting. Well, I mean, you have gravity and you have physics, and if you're going to employ that sort of stuff, then your character better have the intelligence to bring up these ideas, or else it's pointless. Don't do it. You know, you don't have the background to bring up physics or trajectories or whatever. If it's not there, it's not there. And you can't give your character knowledge that it has not earned or has a way of earning. It's just, you can't.
On the other hand, if you're not playing in a generic D&D setting that takes place during medieval times, and instead you're playing in some futuristic sci-fi thing, then that kind of scientific knowledge could just be common knowledge among everybody.
It could be common knowledge, but I mean, even in like say D&D, you have people who understands things go up, come down, and you know, telemetry, you know, because they have catapults and all that stuff. But I mean, you can't give your character knowledge that it does not have or is not fitting into its lexicon of knowledge. It just doesn't work. Which is hard, because you know that for Grog, when he played Grog, he did not have the intelligence. He could not come up with a lot of ideas, but he was true to that. You know, you're playing a barbarian with a low intelligence, you're not going to be coming up with those kinds of plans. That's not what you're set up to do, you know. Now when it comes to doing like a lot of damage and being intimidating and stuff, that's your ballpark. You know how to do that really well. But yeah, understanding what knowledge you have and don't have, and don't bring it in if you don't have it.
Exactly. It kind of like
and that goes into metagaming.
Yeah, it goes straight into metagaming. Metagaming, for those who don't know, is essentially using information that you know due to the fact that it's a game in order to influence your character. So, for example, I
know that a method has this many hit points.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you don't. Like, maybe you figured it out after you fought methods in your last campaign for that character.
Or if you look at the dungeon, if you look at the monster manual, for example. I actually kind of allow like a little bit of metagaming when it makes sense. So, for example, if you're playing an adventurer, your character would have some knowledge about various monsters.
Yeah.
So it does make sense for you to sort of like look through the monster manual maybe like a couple of times and like familiarize yourself with some of the
killed by a specific creature or something.
Familiarize yourself with some of the more common monsters, so that in game you come across the goblin, you'd be like, oh, I know these crafty little buggers. They run around in packs and stab you and try to scutter away, so make sure to hit them when they try to get out our reach or something, you know.
But when you know what every single creature is, something's not right.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what every single creature is, and well, unless they're like a really high mastermind, like
or they're a bard.
Oh, they're bards, yeah.
Yeah, bards can, but if you're playing a bard, you're not gonna know every piece of lore and music.
No,
it's just not fair.
Knowledge check.
Yeah, bardic knowledge is the thing.
Yeah, it is, but you know, there comes a point where even for them that is just abuse.
Like if you're going to like another realm of existence, like chances are that maybe your bardic knowledge doesn't expand that far across.
Yeah. So yeah. metagaming, or maybe somebody in the party knows something and you know about it out of character, you can't magically come to this without knowing this in character without going through some things. It's just not possible.
Using out of character knowledge in character, yeah. Like if you happen to know that due to the law of like watching somebody else's game that like the prince is actually evil, and the game starts with for your session starts with you being asked by the prince, please will you kill the
wait a minute, the prince is alive? What is this crap? He's supposed to be dead.
Oh yeah. I use princes and princesses a lot in my instructions.
Yeah.
But
Your prince is in another castle.
And then you just say that like, oh, actually, like I know that this guy is evil and is trying to trick us, so let's just kill him. That's metagaming.
Yeah, you can't do that. You have no way of knowing that.
Yeah.
As your character, level 3, blah blah blah. No, just no.
There is actually an AD&D module that follows that exact route as well, where the king, or is it a priest? I can't remember. Somebody asks you to get a goblet or something and kill from this like evil wizard, and then it turns out that he is
play the present, not the exactly. Anonymous.
Play the present. Exactly. Play the present, not the past, and play the present, not the future. Yeah.
You are learning, my Padawan. Very smart Padawan. Not playing a Mary Sue. That is, the blandness and the boring of the Mary Sue. It's just you lack personality. You are such a vague. You are beige. Mary Sue characters are. If they were to be a color, they would be beige.
It's even worse than playing an edgelord because they have absolutely no personality. It's just pure perfection. I'm the best at everything, but I trip on a pebble and I get back up and then I tripped on a pebble and that's it.
No. Like a Mary Sue edgelord, they exist. You can be a Mary Sue anything, but it is just you're going to do wrong. You're going to do right. Accept it. Enjoy it.
I know how to use every weapon.
Yeah. Just there's nothing more boring. You know what? It's interesting because it's just growing a personality. Anything can be a Mary Sue. Imagine the most blandest, beigest car. Nobody wants this car. It's the most boring car. You would rather have a terrible car because it has more personality than this bland, beige, horrible.
Yo, but if you get the bland beige car, your stealth goes up by at least 10 points.
No. Everybody looks at you in this bland beige car and they're just like, I don't want to. You know what they talk about? They talk about Velcro. A person in that car talks about Velcro. They talk about
Velcro. They talk about cappuccinos. They talk about Starbucks lattes.
Yes, be interesting. The worst sin you can commit is to be uninteresting. Is to play safe and be so to a point where you are uninteresting. That is the worst thing you can do to yourself. I think.
Hipsters kind of have a habit of being
I don't want to
as
say
bland as they possibly can.
Hipsters, because but just it's just dull. It's dull. There's very little to work with. As a DM, as a fellow player, there's very little to work with. Yeah, they're hard to latch on to. They're hard to invest in. They're hard to get plot hooks to. Just be interesting. That's not getting too attached to your characters' creations. That's hard because you want it, whatever you do to succeed. You want to care. And I think if you start getting into like double digits, you inevitably start to care, because you've spent months on this personality, this character, and the dice just might not be with you that day. The force just might, the clouds may open up and chaos says, today's it, and you die.
And you're also at the mercy of the other players and the GMs. So it's kind of a collaborative effort to keep everybody alive. So
yeah, if you're attached to your character, then realize that everybody else is probably attached to their character, and making sure that if you make sure they live, they'll make sure you live is good policy. And there probably is a little bit of kind of grief, like, oh, that really, it's horrible when PC death happens. You've seen it on Critical Role. I mean, they kind of like sponge off each other, and kind of a group tank thing goes on there, and they kind of blow it out a bit. It's like that to a degree. But
it's a natural occurrence.
If ever you're so attached to a character that if they die and you just kind of want to quit the hobby, maybe you went a tad too far. maybe you got a little too attached.
Yeah.
But there is going to be some amount of investment, and there should be some amount of investment, but like it's a thing that you work through with the group, and hopefully they work with you.
I mean, especially like some people with their playing characters, you can play characters for like years, and like if eventually like they die, especially if it's like something really cheap and unexpected, like they just get hit by a fireball or something, it can hurt and it's sad. But like,
especially when it's a cheap death, when it's really
when it's almost and one thing I would try to do as a GM is that like I won't make it so that the characters die instantly. I tend to say that you're critically wounded and more you're dying on your last legs, and you're coughing up blood, and like here's the time for you to say goodbye to the people and whatnot. I try to like make like when your characters die, like I make like it important. I won't just be sort of like, oh no, you take 52 damage and you're dead. Anyway, next turn. Because that's really really mean.
I mean, we could do a whole thing on character death and like working, this responsible good ways of working
the five stages of grief. Tripped and
tripped and hit your head. Well, if you're in epic levels, that's not going to kill you, but level 1 maybe.
Towards like later levels, you end up with like 200 and something health.
Yeah.
You can jump off like a 50
I got to level 27 with 1. Yeah.
27. You the highest
epic
max
levels, baby.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Anywho, splitting the party. I'm actually okay with splitting the party, but like, go on and tell me why it's bad.
It's just a hassle for the DMs to deal with.
Yeah.
That's the only reason it's on there.
And y'all do that so much in Tune.
Well, it's Tune. What do you?
I know. But it's like stay together, you people, because you can't role play by yourself. It's just role playing with me then, and y'all are gonna, as an improv game, y'all are gonna give, y'all are gonna work off each other better than you are just being just me.
Yeah, but sometimes we just have to multitask. Like we had for one of the episodes of we had 2 people baking, and then we had 2 other people going shopping, but then one other people had to go get a clown outfit, and then the other one went to buy groceries.
And then it was like 3 splits. That was a
Exactly.
free split. But we
It's
deal
not
with
bad.
it,
Yeah.
you know, but realize that it's not just a multitasking for the DM, but there is some considerable risk to your health.
That's what I was going to
Because
say.
you
That
are
like
not a full party, therefore you don't have everybody focusing on the same thing. Therefore, you and whoever else you're with, that's what it is until they can get to you, and they may not be able to get to you. So understanding that risk. Do you really want to do it? Sometimes you do. Sometimes
yeah.
it happens accidentally, and sometimes you don't.
That's that's all I was going to say about it. Like
Also,
I don't mind it when the party splits because like sometimes they can do more. Say for example, you're going to raid a camp of bandits, and the sneaky characters say we'll sneak.
Scout and blah blah blah.
Yeah, we'll sneak inside and open
Look out
like
from
the
behind.
gate. You barbarian and fighter create a distraction out the
From
front,
front.
and it's a plan and it works. So splitting the party in some cases does work. But if you are new to the game, level 1, and you're not used to like splitting the party, it's an advanced tactic and it can go very wrong very quickly, like Jerry just said. And when it does go wrong, you're really far apart from one another, so you
And
can't.
it'll take time for them to get to you if they get to you.
So you can't.
Also,
help
90% of the time, when the DM wants you to get on a boat, don't get on that boat.
Is that Noah Ambweiler?
Yeah.
I thought so. Yeah, I can't remember what that analogy was.
Yeah, it's like, don't get on the boat, don't split the party, don't mess with the Lady of Pain, beware of women, you know. No, Counter Monkey is a good series to
Counter Monkey's really good.
watch.
When it was a series.
Well, he hasn't made anything in 2 years, but there's a back catalog. There's a ton of stuff to watch, and a lot of it is still relevant.
He's still relevant. He still owes us a movie.
Yes, he does owe us a movie.
Well, he doesn't owe us anything, but I mean, people did pay like money to it and stuff, but I don't know.
We still hope.
I don't
want the best for him.
Yeah, I don't just hate him.
No, I don't. No.
Anywho, bringing up potentially offensive, sensitive topics without prior warning.
Triggers.
This is a big one. This is one that like loads of people.
Especially in this day and age, there's a lot of things that people can be sensitive to, and we ultimately nobody wants to make someone feel like crying or isolated. That's not what anyone intends to do when they sit down to play pretend, you know.
The thing is as well is that like especially with strangers that you don't know each other's
very well what you've been through.
If you don't know each other's limits, maybe a good idea is sort of like err on caution and to keep it a little bit tame until you sort of like know each other a little bit better. Amongst friends, and you know what other people are okay with, then fine. You can bring up like potentially sensitive or offensive topics. Because you know role playing is like a really fun way to sort of explore those things. Like
generally necrophilia, not a good thing to insert.
Maybe you know. I was gonna say like
I know that we could get more PC or something, but that's just
sensitive topics like
political
things, homophobia, racism. Not to like celebrate it or indulge in it because like you would want to do those sort of things, and this is like an outlet for it, but more so to sort of like explore those topics within a safe environment. That's one thing that I really like doing, in fact. And a lot of my campaigns, I'll sort of like add in more more of these sort of like sensitive topics into them,
Careful.
because
Careful.
it's an interesting sort of like thing to play, but you really have to be careful about it.
It is. I don't know that if I particularly want to examine those type of things, through this, because often we don't know how something's going to pan out, or like what if our narrative, if everybody is okay with that narrative. I don't know. It just seems like there's so many possibilities that you could do besides hot topic issues of today, or the last 30 years that we've grappled with. I don't know. It just almost seems like, gosh, there's so many other things that you could do that it's almost like shoehorned. But if you have a group that's willing, and you're interested in maybe almost like a think tanks kind of experiment, where you see what possibilities or how people handle it, I could see how that would be interesting too, though. I can. I just don't know that I particularly would want to run a game that way, or
and
kind
then
of address the issues in
and then obviously the other thing is like what the kids nowadays are calling triggers.
Yeah.
And I can kind of
That triggered me.
I can kind of get that. There are certain things that do install fear into people, like phobias. For me, honestly, I'm actually terrified of the concept of being eaten alive. And that sounds kind of like...
That's a ton of movies and books and things. That's... I have a food phobia, but I still watch Survivor, and I watch Celebrity Get Me Out of Here, and I watch people eat those things. I mean...
Well, the thing is that, like, I haven't seen any of the Jurassic Park films.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's really scary. I just don't want to watch those sort of films.
I've seen those robots back when I was a kid. They bought the T-Rex.
I haven't seen that anime Attack on Titan.
Oh yeah,
it's
you wouldn't like those.
And
what about zombie movies?
Yeah,
zombie movies are alright. I can watch them with like a pillow. It's mainly like really big things.
Watch them with a pillow.
Yeah, I have to watch.
With this little stuffed animal.
I have to hide behind a pillow to watch certain films because they are scary. It's kind of a little embarrassing to admit, but there we go. I get
so just eaten by larger things.
It's mainly larger things like dinosaurs.
Well, hold on, you had a spider eat me in 10 Candles, you creep.
Yeah, I wasn't very explicit on the actual eating part.
Me, it's just eating him. I mean, he's okay with killing me on being by.
I wasn't very sort of like explicit with the eating part, and
it's implied.
And in that case, like I was detached and mainly playing the spider, so that's kind of a little bit different. It's mainly if I'm playing a character and something else is like, oh, I'm going to now eat you, and for me, it sort of like takes me out of the game because it's not so much like an actual sort of fear. It's at that point it like I will stop like being pretend fear and it will actually be real fear. And so there is actually
that explains to me why you don't like the blob. Why you think the blob is scarier than
yeah. Okay, so I was going to get to that. The whole thing about me saying that the blob is the most scariest film of all time is that I watched the blob when I was about 7 years old, and that may be the source of why I'm so terrified of things being things that can possibly eat you alive, is because of that film. But yeah, so there's like a video of me playing on Salt and Sassy where my character got attacked by a gelatinous cube, and immediately I stopped role playing and was just basically like, yeah. I'm gonna roll attack.
Roleplay? What is that? I'm getting
Jack
eaten alive.
started dealing with it instead of Jack's character.
So yeah, so yeah, I can totally understand phobias. I can totally understand, and being afraid of things that can eat you. I don't need to say like, oh, I don't want this in the game, or I'm going to excuse myself if it appears in the game. I can sit through it and just sort of detach myself. For other people, though, if they're that afraid of it, of certain things like spiders, scorpions, gelatinous cubes.
Oh my god, they signed up for the wrong hobby.
Yeah, maybe just mention it before the game. And if you're that somebody like had a phobia of fire, and she told me like I'm really like terrified of fire, and I was like, okay, cool. Like I was planning to have a fire in the game, but like it doesn't. It's not.
Cat.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna start a campfire and she's just gonna run.
It's not essential to the story for there to be a fire. I can replace it with something else. It's cool. Or
it's a flood, a typhoon. If somebody's afraid of drowning.
If there was
a little thing, get a little thing. Though.
Or if there was a fire, I would make sure her character was outside of the fire and maybe doing something else. That sort of thing, and I'm fine with that.
There are plenty of avenues the DM can take if they really want to do a thing. But yeah.
What do you think about that sort of thing?
I mean, I have a thing. For me personally, I like have abandonment issues. I have food phobias, but I realize that is just, me, and that if people bring it up or my character gets isolated from the rest of the thing, I'll role play it, but I still understand that is just, it's kind of a reality. It is a thing. To say that abandonment doesn't happen or whatever, doesn't happen, because it does. It's not that I'm just something that I just am eager to do, but I'll be a sport about it and deal with it. I'll probably be able to role play it very rawly and emotionally. The DM might not like that, how well I portray it. That is just because I just take my real feelings about it and can shove it through the character, and for good or ill. But I don't think I would usually say, no, you cannot.
Yeah.
No. More things that I would be like a hard no on is like the DM doing illicit hardcore things to a character, like forcing characters to suffer sexual acts or something like that.
Yeah, avoid sexual things like
like
I would
skull,
yeah.
Skull thing,
Yeah, I would just say as a hard rule. As a hard
I think
rule.
that's really
unless
more so.
Yeah, sorry.
Unless
unless you know the people you're role playing with really, really, really well, just avoid sexual things altogether, because it's just a route that can go very badly very quickly. There was actually something that happened
on Twitter
recently.
Not too long ago.
Yeah, during the UK Games Expo, and there's actually a lot of backstory behind that as well. Like it may not be quite what you may have thought to begin with, but I won't get into it.
I don't know, but I've had games and I've heard of people dealing with either player characters initiating PvP against another player and saying, well, I'm gonna skull blank blank blank. Imagine what you will.
Yeah. Like I think that's a bit crude
just
as well.
like,
Or like
no.
or like even like excessive swearing is a little bit out there.
Yeah, that can become a bit tiresome. But
So
I mean, just
that's
be respectful, be mindful of
that's
you know.
that's kind of like what a session 0 is for as well. Just sort of like getting to know each other and like saying like where your boundaries are. The only thing that there's a video that like if you want to check it out yourself, it's by Extra Credits. Comfortable play respecting boundaries in Telltale RPGs. The only thing I do not agree with is what's called the X card.
Oh yeah. Oh no, we're talking about a thing that makes me unhappy. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's not how society works.
And
you know.
The theory behind it is really well meaning. I understand entirely what the thoughts behind the cards is.
But that's not you can't live like that.
But it's essentially a heckler's veto. That it gives the power to like somebody who is feeling mild discomfort.
Yeah, mild discomfort. That's life. You're gonna feel mild discomfort.
And some people would say that like it's not mild discomfort. It's a horrible sort of thing that's terrifying you. That again, that's what before the session was for. If you are terrified of spiders, if you are that terrified of spiders that like the mere mention of them can send you into a paralytic shock, it's important enough for you to bring up at the start of the game. What the X card does in its well-meaning intended thing is it disrupts the game for everybody else. So the players have like gotten into something and they're adventuring in a dungeon and they've almost got the treasure, but then there's a spider on top of the case, and then somebody taps the X card. And the rules of the X card is that you don't even have to justify why you've done it. So then the GM is like, oh, okay, actually you're not doing that. Something else is happening, and it's very disruptive, and it takes people out of the game. So my policy is that like discuss things before the game that you are anxious about and you don't want to see in the game. If something happens in the game that you really, really, really are not comfortable with, it is totally fine to just excuse yourself and remove yourself from the game. And come back at a point when you feel comfortable to come back into the game.
Sometimes you should just leave the table. Sometimes staying there, when people get upset or sometimes the worst thing you can do is stay at the table. Know when to
run. And it's not that's not
in the real world.
And that's not you being ejected from the game.
No. That's you being smart and taking a moment and
just removing yourself from that situation and bring it up between sessions that like that specific thing I really didn't feel comfortable with. And most GMs, if they're nice enough, will say, yeah, okay, I can work around that. Like I'm more accommodating, that like I can sort of like try to sort of like work around things that people don't like. But yeah, that's all I've got to say about that.
Yep. And with that, is that the last slide? Is there any more slides? Do we have more slides?
There's some more. There's a few. There's two more. Do you want to do it?
What are they? I don't remember. I looked at them, but like I have ADHD, okay? I have ADHD.
Let's apply what we've learned.
Yeah. Let's apply what we've learned. Things.
Do it, like Shia LaBeouf. Just do it.
Just do it.
Adventurers Guild Scenario 1. Setting 10,000... 1100 PC. 10,000
CE.
1100 CE. Bruce, you read it.
Okay, so these are some. I made 2 sample scenarios for us and anybody who's watching this to practice role playing. 2 different scenarios. The first one is your a generic fantasy medieval European setting, and the second one is like space sci-fi futuristic stuff going on. So for the first scenario, it's the Adventurers Guild setting, 1100 CE, the Orborocrum Empire. I kind of just like slammed my hand on the keyboard and that came out.
I believe it.
Location, the Platinum Cerberus Guild. Also just made that up on the spot. It's a gathering place for merchants, mercenaries, and drunks.
Okay.
And we got 4 characters to pick from. Lila, a disgruntled receptionist, has a habit of macing everything in the general vicinity erratically when flustered.
You mean like a can of mace?
Or like an actual mace, like a medieval mace.
Or
yeah, you can interpret it how you like.
I like to think of like she's just like stranger danger.
Because those are vastly different things.
Yeah, it's open to interpretation. Okay. And then we got Harold. He's just your generic fledgling adventurer. He's registering at the reception desk. Okay. The next is Major Flemhold, elven bureaucrat. He's conducting a guild inspection.
Inspector Flemhold.
Yes, and then there's Sir Stronkbeard. He's a heavily intoxicated dwarf alchemist. He holds strong anti-governmental sentiments. So I guess everybody pick a character and then we'll start our role playing from there.
I'm Lila.
Okay.
I could do any of them really.
I just want a can
Bruce,
of mace.
do you
I
have
want to be Harold. I'm Harold.
Okay. I'm gonna roll a dice and choose between either or. Flip coin. Heads
I made
first
4
one.
characters because I assumed there would be another person here, but
heads the first one. Second, I pick Strong Bear. Can I? Okay, fine. Then I'm Elven Man.
Okay.
Major Flemhold, Elven bureaucrat conducting guild inspection.
Yes.
So, Bruce, seeing as this is your scenario, do you want to lead us in?
Okay.
Bruce is like, I'm the party leader.
I'm an important character. Okay, Harold. Harold generally. Is that even an adjective?
Anonymous wants to pick Strong Beard.
Yeah, he said. That's why I chose Major Flemhold.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, so Harold nervously enters the Platinum Servers Guild through its very tall, elaborately ordained double doors. Of course, there are platinum Cerberuses engraved onto the double doors because they are the symbols of the guild. He kind of just peeks around the corner, notices there's a long line of adventurers. Adventurers just kind of they're crowded in front of the reception's desk, and some of them are wandering over the job board. And next to the reception area and the job board, there's what you would call what does look kind of like a tavern. There's there's people of all races and classes there, just having a good time, drinking, partying. It looks like it appears that there's
my office work very difficult.
Exactly. It appears there's been a very successful hunt that just occurred a couple of days ago. They slew a few lamias, the guild has gained quite a bit of notoriety for that, and the guild master is currently out on vacation. Who knows what he's doing? Probably just drinking his ass off somewhere in the mountains.
I have to do his work too.
Exactly. And if you look very closely, there's a tall man. There's a tall man with pointy ears, wearing a bowler hat in a black trench coat, just kind of glancing around, writing stuff down.
Oh God, I think I'm being audited. Oh God, start stamping things fervently. Yes, how can I help you? You need this. Okay, this form needs that.
I take it the man in the bowler hat is me.
Yes.
Yes. So
okay, Sir Strongbeard as well. Anonymous, where where would you like to be? Would you like to be in line at the reception desk, or do you want to be off in the lounge area doing something?
Okay, Harold kind of just jumps in line, and after maybe 5-10 minutes of waiting there, he finally gets to the front, and he comes face to face with Lila, the disgruntled receptionist. He's like, hello, my name is Harold. I just came from my hometown of Big Root, and I've recently turned 10, and I was wondering if I could register at this guild as an adventurer. And I don't know if there's an age limit, but if I'm too young, would it be okay if I could be someone's apprentice?
Yeah. Well, if Ash Ketchum can go all over a continent without his mother's supervision, I guess you can too.
Who's this Ash person?
Don't worry about him. He's a kid from Pallet Town. He came in not too long ago. I did the paperwork for him. I guess it'll be okay if I do it for you. Right. I need you to fill out this form and this form, but I need you to print, no cursive, print. Very important. Blue ink instead of black is preferred. Just fill this out. You can step to the side. When you're done, you can hand it back to me if I could help. While you're doing that, I will help the next person in line. God, this workload is insane. I should be promoted.
Okay. Do I just take a seat over there? He kind of
she just moves like the paperwork like about 2.5 feet to her left. It's still on like the counter, so you can fill it out there. And she's like, when you're done filling it out, and there's like a little break in between thing, you can hand it back to me. It'll be okay. Maybe I'll be okay. I don't know. I really should be paid more.
Harold just kind of glances at her very
next
with some concern and moves to the left to fill out the paperwork.
So as I'm listening to this, I'm sort of glancing down my nose at you all as I'm jotting something down on a gold-lined notepad with a very fancy pen. I flick out a white latex glove and slowly slide it onto my hand before wiping a single finger down the length of the bar. Lifting it up to my face and rubbing the dirt between my fingers, I say, disgusting. Is this how all guild business is done in the Urbukrium Empire?
And that's to me?
Yes.
Well, I am not in the janitorial services. I do front desk here. As you can see, I am swapped. My boss is on vacation. I am not getting paid enough for this, but I am trying to keep everything moving along. What is it that I can do for you, sir? Do you need a stamp or a signature, or what is the nature of your business today?
The guild.
She's like looking at the stamp or a signature.
The guild halls are the front face of our. The guild halls are the front face of our organization. Its appearance is essential for the jurisdiction of our kind.
Again, manager's away. I'm not sure how I.
While that's happening, Harold finally finishes the paperwork and just he kind of just walks back up to Lila and hands it to her like, here you go, miss. I finished the paperwork.
Okay. And she's like, 1 second. Stamp. Flicks page. Stamp. She loves her stamp. Stamp. You get the idea that this having a big stamp and stamping things was a big selling point for her when she took up this job. Stamp. And she's like, Okay, and this mailing address is correct because this is where we're gonna send your card.
Get a card? What?
Yeah, you have to have a card.
Okay. I guess that's right.
Yeah, step.
Harold glances up to his right and sees locks eyes with the long-eared fellow in the black attire and just kind of stares for a while.
That form was supposed to be double triplicated, not single triplicated. Gods, woman, don't you even know how to do your job?
Hi, sir. Are you an elf? I haven't seen one in years. I don't think anybody in my hometown seen an elf since the last Crusades. Are you with Tarly's inspection squad?
That I am.
Now she's just like, oh. She just, just is like, this is her worst nightmare ever. Okay, because the forms weren't in triplicate as they apparently should have been. She didn't know that, I'm guessing. Right.
Anonymous, this is your chance.
Yes, Anonymous, insert thyself.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So you're a drunk dwarf alchemist, holds strong anti-governmental sentiments as he is watching this elf bureaucrat essentially look down and bully these two other people. He just referred to the receptionist as a woman, which is very rude of him.
Technically that isn't wrong, but my little desk name thing is on there. No.
So with the information that as brief as it is, the information that you have, how would you feel that your sort of character would act in that situation?
Say or do. We wait on bated breath.
Yeah. There he goes. Okay. I would be pissed.
So how would you make this dissatisfaction known? What would you do?
Waiting for the dead air. We don't like dead air.
Yeah, dead air is hard, but it's just.
Probably would say something loud enough for him to hear it. Yeah, okay. What would you say?
Yeah, you gotta,
Hey, yo. Oh, God.
See, this is like what it becomes, this kind of thing when people actually go to do it,
It's what I don't know. So
it's
maybe if I was playing that character.
Hey, what's taking so long over there? What's happening? Oh, what is with that bull? Oh, I see what's going on. This triangle is over here holding up the line. Well, what are you doing over here, Triangle? You ain't welcome these parts.
Yeah. It's like judgy, preachy, preach.
And then as a
how about you do something helpful instead of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oi, I got mine on me. I'm telling you, man. If you take one more step toward little lay over here and little boy over here, I will, and I mean I will. Takes out a vial, chugs it.
Yeah.
Kind of spits a little fire because he accidentally chugged the fire breathing potion
instead.
Yeah, he's drunk.
I mean, just anything.
No, normally when I roleplay dwarves, I tend to give them like either a West Country or Irish accent because that's the only ones that I can really do for them. So it'd be kind of like, You got a line back here that as long as what's the light over there? Oh, old man, shouldn't you worry about your hairs instead of other mistakes? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that works. Like, what's that light over there? Oh, what a bald man. Shouldn't you worry about your hairs instead of others' mistakes? Something like that.
Like, and this is like the only thing that like the Layla has to grab onto when the dwarf says that. So she goes, a very valid point. It does look like it might need a little trim. Trim. Just something.
I would think
Or
not.
go for her mace.
My hair took my hair took years to grow. You keep your hands off it. I've never been so insulted in my life.
Well, do you have this so-called form in triplicate? Because we don't have those at this branch. And if they are supposed to be in triplicate, then how is that my fault that they're not in triplicate? I don't sit down and create each and every form. That's someone else's job. I am just given what I am given, and I do the best with what I have given.
Harold just kind of he moseys on a little back and then hides behind one of the stouter looking humans. Well, he hides behind what looks like a giant lumberjack, a lumbering lumberjack. It's probably Paul Bunyan, but you never know.
Okay.
And he's like just kind of looking around. He's kind of just looking around the waist of the lumberjack, so he's away at a safe distance. The lumberjack kind of looks down and is like, dude, what is this kid doing over there?
Were you using me for cover?
Exactly.
I know when I'm being used for full cover here. You know? But yeah, that's kind of how it's done. I mean, I don't know. What end are we role playing this out to?
I've never been so more insulted in my life. Your manager will hear from this, I swear it.
If he ever gets back from vacation.
Let's get like 2 more actions from the dwarf.
Okay. All right. So
mark my words, by the time I've written my report on you, you will be lucky to work in you'll be lucky to work in a post office, let alone a guild hall. I'm now the villain.
Yeah, you've become the villain. What a surprise! The guy who usually DMs becomes the villain. You know, oh my word!
My usual calm demeanor seems to be cracking as you can always see like a vein sort of like popping out the side of my forehead as I lean over the counter towards you, almost like threatening you with my
Stranger danger!
Oh, my eyes!
I'm never gonna work again. I might as well go out big.
I mean, oh god, because there's multiple of them in this universe.
Okay.
I can't see.
So the little receptionist, beyond being threatened in him getting up in her space, which that he's, that's. I felt my space invaded, and it was just too much.
Turns out it was actual mace and not a real mace.
No. This stuff, is that it can take down like bears. It's the bear grade. And at that, I'll stand up on the desk and I'll say, "He's the man, the oppressor." Oh no! Fight against the man. Oh no!
Maybe ask your manager some hair treatments.
Yeah, the dwarf is insulting you, saying your superior should maybe, I don't know. Is that part of your healthcare plan?
Because he holds strong anti-governmental sentiments.
Harold, at the moment the mace has been sprayed, just runs over to the tavern side of the guild and ducks under one of the tables.
Okay.
Avoiding conflict.
Yeah,
I'm guessing now there would be some sort of initiative. I'm guessing, since like I've maced
I sort of try to stumble
an
out,
official.
but because I can't see, I end up running headfirst into a pole and knock myself out.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the second one.
Oh, we're
Do you
gonna
want to
try
do,
a
do you want to do
different
the
one?
second one?
I mean, we kind of just kept going, and then we have
Yeah.
nothing else to do except like combat or just keep
Yeah,
going.
I did. But he got
can
up
do
in
the
my
second one.
face. What else can I do?
You could have maced him with an actual mace.
Practical. Yeah, welcome. Practical
Yeah.
application continued.
So this
Futuristic.
is scenario 2.
Yeah.
We're at a futuristic tech expo setting 5347 CE at a gargantuan star cruiser orbiting Pluto location, the Ergonomic Goods Exposition Hall with complimentary banquet. So
I'm Jack Sparkles, which is Jacqueline Sparkles, since I'm a chick. I just want to take the first one.
So you got Foon Bonaparte, the 12th, the CEO of Pre-Propriate. You know, it's like appropriating, but before you're appropriating it before someone's patented or invented it. So you're pre-propriating it, which is genius. It's
like a patent troll.
Yeah, it's a company specializing in communications technology. Foon is unveiling a new product, and then you got Jack Sparkles, a flamboyant journalist, has a conspiracy theory fetish.
Yeah, I want to play that.
Theon, Foon's personal android assistant / security guard, has a propensity for sometimes displaying illogical / human characteristics.
That one would be fun too.
Yeah.
And then Drew Johnson, a pre-World War I British archaeologist, sailed into the Bermuda Triangle where he lost both his crew and his consciousness before suddenly waking up in the Star Cruise's loading docks. Just stumbled upon Foon's exhibition.
That's really good. I like it.
Yeah, this is pretty fun.
So you got one
pretty
character
chaotic.
Yeah, you got one character that's completely out of his element.
Yeah. But it works because it's such a chaotic thing anyhow that it's not breaking.
I'm gonna roll a dice and see which one it lands on.
I'll be Sparkles.
I'll be Foon, fuck it.
I rolled a 4. Drew Johnson. I get the pre-World War I British archaeologist guy.
Yeah.
Yes!
Okay. All right. All right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the pre-program expedition, where we will be unveiling our company's newest and greatest inventions, including the coveted phone in the head. It's like, how back in the day in the 2000s, that was like 3 centuries ago, humans used to use these bricks called cell phones to make calls. But since those times, we have been able to upgrade our own spinal column so we could directly hook up into the World Wide Web. But this is a huge improvement for that, because spinal implantation surgery is a very costly and ineffective product with only a 39% success rate. But now, with this brain chip, you'll be able to just simply insert this up your nose, just tickle with it a bit, and once it hooks up with your navel cavity up here, it'll send a little electric signal vibrating through your skeletal structure, going straight to your cerebral cortex, and from there you will be able to connect straight to the World Wide Web in not 17G, not 18G, not 19G, but 25G. The fastest connection you will ever experience.
Sir, is it true that there are claims that not only have you used Elvis Presley's head in the early developments of this technology, but you also used national, throughout the ages, beloved personality Walt Disney's head in early prototypes of this technology? Conspiracy.
I can neither confirm or deny those accusations, but I can positively I can confirm that we have indeed experimented with Michael Jackson's brain fluid.
I knew it!
Any more questions?
Is it true that bunnies were also used in many of the experiments?
As you know, experimentation on small mammals has been outlawed since the 28th century, so we have been using termites instead, although they are not very similar to humans, so we have taken many steps to ensure that no harm has come to these delicate little creatures.
And what about the government's involvement in this corporation and using these products for their own gains?
I like money.
Money?
I like,
check to see if it's true.
I like money.
13. I don't know. I don't know what my modifiers are. No.
I like money. So, yeah, I believe that'll bring an end to our very brief and quick expedition. Make sure you go to www.
But I have so many more questions.
Preappropriate.ru to purchase one of our $2.99 shirts. I don't know what currency it's in, but you'll find that it is a very appropriate design.
He's hiding something.
Also enjoy the complimentary banquet. Thank you, folks. Phone departs from the exhibition. It just kind of like walks around off the stage and gets some grub. He grabs a couple of drumsticks and some escargot butter salad.
Okay, that's interesting. Like a butter salad. It's got margarine. It's got sweet butter. It's got.
Meanwhile,
Okay.
I'm walking around the place, very confused. Like, what sort of manner of?
I want to see if I do a perception check to even notice you. What did that? It rolled onto the floor. 11. I don't know. How obvious are you? What do you look like? Like
I'm probably wearing antiquated.
Yes.
Yeah, like clothes.
oh
Like,
wow! So that might notice you. Is like, what is that?
what manner of ship is this? It's it appears to be some sort of metal underwater cruise liner. I've never seen such a bizarre thing in my life.
It's like they cryo froze people from the past and are bringing them back. I knew it. Just him around, observing him.
You there, boy, with the sandwich. Where am I?
What sandwich?
He called you a boy. Do you look like a boy?
Sandwich. Are you calling me a boy?
Yes, of course. You know,
Well, I'll have you know, sir, with you and your strange manner of speaking, I'm indeed a man. I have just passed the age of 397 a few short months ago, and I'll be happy to let you know that I have no idea who you are, what you are, but I will be taking you into custody now. Dion!
397? That's absolutely absurd. Speak English, man. What do you
when
mean?
the cops come, it's like, in what regard do you have the means of incarcerating this individual? What wrong have they truly done? You must answer to the press right now.
Do you not see the way he's dressed?
He's clothed. It's not naked.
Do not see the way he's dressed.
Do you see the way you're dressed?
I am the CEO of Pretty Appropriate. I am allowed to wear whatever I want.
Yes, but the emperor's robe is not I mean, we deal with it, but sorry, that was a little.
I don't think you understand. According to my conveniently placed medical sensors on this here wristwatch, he is carrying tons and tons and quadrillion pathogens onto the ship. He has not been sterilized in the slightest. He is not clean. He will infect all the. In fact, I do believe I detect traces of bubonic plague on this man.
Yes, I mean.
Bubonic plague.
Yeah, I mean, I may have delved into exploring the ruins of Spain a few weeks ago, but that's it's nothing to be afraid of. A little bit of bubonic plague can never hurt anyone.
Kind of tries to smell, see if you smell weird. So, you let me understand this, Mr. CEO. You have allowed a person that could possibly, like, make us all ill and die to this event. Am I understanding that correct, Mr. CEO?
He was not on the guest list.
Well,
Tell me, what was your name again, boy?
No, he's your boy.
Exactly.
The boy ping pong goes back and forth. Who will be the boy?
I
Someone will
refuse
be
to
the
be called a
boy.
boy for I am a man.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we are taking the Mickey out of this a little bit. You know,
Do you have
we
any
probably a bit more serious if this was like legit campaign, but we've kind of gotten the case of the giggles, kind of.
checking the guest list? This person was indeed not the guest. Also, just role playing with one person, kind of like lagging 3 seconds behind.
Yeah.
Pretty annoying.
Yeah.
Do you have any sorts of identification on you? Actually, yeah, how about this, boy? You come with me to the back room right now. I'll get the bubonic plague all sorted out, and you can have some candy. Isn't that what you young folk call those snacks these days? Candy, the sweets, the jitters.
I'll do nothing of the sort. And in fact, I've had quite enough of this unlawful treatment. Unhand me at once.
I just want you to start talking like Hugh Laurie from Blackadder is what I want you to start doing.
All of a sudden, I've decided that I've quite had enough of this. In fact, and I'm taking this ship hostage. In fact,
Once you said hostage, Boom just
Calls the presses. I am currently at the event, and I'm being taken hostage.
He holds his hand up. It opens up, revealing that it's a cybernetic arm, and then a little spray nozzle comes out and
maces me again.
It's not mace, it's sleeping gas.
Oh, sleeping gas.
It's for self-defense.
Yes.
Oh,
the radius?
my eyes again.
You're just sleepy. My eyes feel heavy, like I'm going to go to sleep.
No, the sleeping gas burns. And now I am feeling sleepy.
I think we're good for now. This is kind of going nowhere.
Yeah, kind of. It's hard when we don't like have a stat block. You know, we're just kind of like, how far do we take this?
Yeah,
I think that's fine.
But yeah, the point is, we did try to just instantly hook into. With
the with the information that was there, like
yeah,
sort of like trying at least. Sometimes it works. Sometimes like for the first one, had like an interesting little arc, like it sort of like the bureaucrat person was making a bother of himself, so annoying the receptionist. So
Yeah.
the
You just
dwarf
picked the
sort of
wrong
like came
receptionist.
inside and
The one and only receptionist.
With mace on hand.
the dwarf sort of like stepped up and interrupted him. It yeah, as I was saying, it's literally just like reading the everyone. It works.
Everybody can do
It's
it.
literally
It's like
just practice.
it is. It is. It is. It's like I've never played tennis. So am I going to be suited to tennis when I first start? Probably. There's a learning curve. The point is if you really want to play tennis, then you'll grow through the awkwardness and get there. That's the same with any kind of game. I am terrible at MMOs.
And
I you know,
and
I
like
have no sense of direction.
and like some people are like better at like some people can't even. I say can't even. That sounds cruel. Some people find it difficult to jump straight into a character, like improvise a role. Like some people, they really have to sort of like plan like heavily for a role before they actually start role playing it. It's lit and like I'm not that great at improv, but then you kind of have to be if you DM a lot. So it's kind of like more of like a necessity thing for me. Other people, like especially Bruce and Jerry, like they do a lot more improv than I do, so they can really get into a role really, really quickly, and just sort of like commit to it. At the end of the day, it's literally just practice. If you just keep doing something over and over and over again, like eventually you get better.
Usually, and too with like NPCs like this, it's like to me this was more of an NPC because I didn't make it or whatever. But those are fun for me to do for a DM who maybe doesn't do voices but wants to bring in a character, like to maybe revitalize the campaign, maybe pique his players' interest. So can you do this NPC for me? And these are the questions that they'll probably ask. This is kind of what I want you to do, or I want you to kind of maybe introduce this storyline, and I can go and do that. That's a lot of fun. And this is a little bit like that. This felt a little bit like that.
It's just when I try to speak, it's always like I was going to interrupt something. That's just because of the delay.
In the time delay, there's a little delay.
There's like a 3-second delay between things, and to be honest, like even when you're actually role playing, in general,
sometimes you have to muscle in there.
Yeah, figuring out when to speak, and when to sort of like interject yourself into a conversation is really difficult as well. I find it very difficult to muscle into conversations, and I'm the DM in most cases.
No DM, we will not let you speak. We will not let you run the story. We're too busy creating ourselves. But no, it's like I say, you have to fight for your right to party. You do have to muscle
it's interesting as well to notice that Jerry and Bruce, you both roleplay in third person. You both roleplay in third person. You speak for your characters, but you refer to your characters by name and in third person. I roleplay in first person. So instead of saying that, like, what was that other guy's character from the last slide? Let's have a look. Major Flemhold. Instead of saying Major Flemhold walks up to the desk and wipes his finger across the thing, I say I walked up to the desk and whip out a glove and then put it on and then wipe my finger across the bar and then rub them between my fingers. That's what first person role playing is to refer to yourself in the first person on what you are doing as you are doing it. And then third person is saying Theon walks up to the bar and says hello.
I will speak my lines what the character says. If they're using dialogue, I will do that like that. But then if I'm having to describe how they're doing something, I can shift into the third. I jump, I ping pong.
It's very common.
Just do third person to keep it simple. I want there to be a distinction between the character's actions and the character's dialogue.
Yeah.
Normally what I'll do is that when I'm describing something, and then when I say something, I'll say third person. I did it then when I was at the bar. I said that I wipe my finger across the bar and then rub the dirt between my fingers before I look at you and say, and then I'll say something. So I will literally say that I am saying something before I say it.
We don't have to say, and then I say. We say we do the thing, and then
that's the difference between first and third person role playing, is that like you don't need to say that if you're talking in third person because it's obvious. Yeah, that is true. It's just a different technique because when you're talking in first person, I find it a lot easier to get into a character's head because I'm literally talking as if I am that character. If that makes sense.
We do, because like when I was asking the question, I don't say Sparkles asks, blah, 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 blah.
And another thing there was you're close in your stretch, because I'm really good at playing the snooty sort of like highbrow posh characters.
British people.
Yeah. So
it would have
the
been
elf
funny if you had corrected your boss. I was anonymous to bring up the thing. Like that would have been funny.
Yeah, live that would have been dope.
That would have been really good because you're a robot. You can remember things. He's a person.
Yeah, no, that would have been
funny. That would have been really funny.
That would have been really good. Yeah,
that would have been snappy. That would have been very snappy.
And like
legit.
And like, I thought I would actually fit in really well with Drew Johnson, the pre-World War One British archaeologist, because like again, English me, that is person, but I couldn't get into that guy's head as well as I could the other guys. So like that for me, I guess, is a stretch.
Because you play more NPCs that are like the other guy.
So that's like close and stretch thing.
Yeah. You play more authoritative NPCs better that are judgmental and stuff rather than
naturally antagonistic.
Yeah, than that guy.
But by the way, that's when you were playing Foon Bonaparte this 12th. When you did that spheral about like that product that you were doing.
Yeah, I was literally just making it up on the fly, like, really product. Good. I need a communications product.
That's like some Toon stuff there.
That was really good. I love that.
Yeah. Toon is a really good exercise for improvisation. It really is. I encourage all DMs to play that style of game because it is very liberating. A lot of fun. You get to say yes to everything just about.
And like
yes.
Interrupting people is like and correcting them in role playing is fine as well. Like one of the characters that I play in someone else's game is called Valerie Reinhardt, who's more of like a comedic character, and he speaks like very like, aha, well, we shall strive forwards and slay them, and stuff like that.
We'll marry on the morrow.
And he's a little bit dumb as well. And one of the really funniest things that like got the entire group in hysterics was that the DM at the time described that we walked into this like creepy ruined church, and there were basically the remains of skeletons still on top of the beds, and the rotted frames of the beds, they were like skeletons, and there seemed to be like some sort of rune on the wall. And Meadow, one of the character players was playing a character called Meadow, who said like, I know, perhaps that rune over there is, and I just quickly interrupted her and went, shh, quiet, Meadow, the skeletons are sleeping.
But no, like you're playing a robot. Think about the show Red Dwarf. Crichton is a robot, but he will correct Rimmer all the time. He'd be like, you mean rule 339 about no one shall pet bunnies while chewing bubble gum and walking at the same time. That rule, sir? And he's like, no, not that rule. You know, it's a robot that will correct. It just really depends on how you play it, you know, and how you do a thing, how you say a thing, how you do a thing. You know, if you try hard enough, you can.
That's a really good idea. That's a really good thing as well, is that like if you really want like a lot of good advice or tips or whatnot in order to think about more characters, is just to watch stuff and read stuff. And the more fiction that you immerse yourself in, the more information you absorb, the more almost like you test your and read like different stuff by like different authors and like horror.
Or maybe if you like played a Jason Statham kind of guy. That's Mossy's doing that. I'm running like a game.
Yeah.
He chose to play like the post office guard halfling. Now he's playing another halfling, but he's like doing a Jason Statham voice. It's terrifying. He's like trying to talk to these children. I'm like, that is terrifying. I think he does like this smile. It's like, that is so creepy, but it's entertaining. It's interesting. You know, be a Vin Diesel kind of character. That would be weird to play.
Like, is everyone reading any books at the moment?
Yeah, it's called the Worldwide Wrestling Handbook.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand that. But I mean, was that the last slide?
Yeah, that's the last slide.
Yeah.
The last one is the end.
The end.
Yay.
We did it. It only took us 3.5 hours to do so.
And
But I think we thoroughly covered the entity that is being a character, figuring out how to be a character, or some of the things that you can do should you feel moved.
we've covered it along with a lot of rambling.
We've I think we've solved all the world's problems.
We saw world hunger.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure we covered that at some point. I'm pretty sure it was very comprehensive.
Okay.
I think.
At the moment, I'm reading 2 books.
How can you even? How can you even?
Pillars of the Earth.
Pillars of the Earth.
And Eliot. Follett. Eliot.
Okay.
It's
will
really,
things
really
from
good.
that book end up in Crimson Sands of Mar?
No, I mean it is really good. About page 469 at the moment. It's about a guy called Tom who wants to build a church.
How nice.
And he has 2 sons, and then one of the sons gets adopted by one of the lords. So they both grow up really differently. It's really good. And then the other one is 1984 by George Orwell.
Okay.
So yeah, like reading like just a lot of different genres and whatnot, kind of like really can get you sort of like to learn about how to play as like different characters, because you kind of like learn about different like people. Anyway, that's everything. that's all that I can say.
The first of Dice Club Academy. I guess we'll try to do this the first Wednesday of every month. Keyword try.
Yep.
Yeah, always the Discord at the bottom with all the other many things about us and so on and so forth. And as always, the only rule of Dice Club, first rule of Dice Club, tell everyone about Dice Club and to take care and be Sweet.
See you later.
Later.
Bye.
Goodbye.